Kenyatta. The announcement was made after a meeting in Nairobi of the 7-member East African Community on the security situation in the Eastern DRC after a flare-up of violence. Heavy fighting in the Eastern DRC has revived decades-old animosities between Kinshasa and Kigali, with the DRC blaming neighboring Rwanda for a recent resurgence of the M23 militia. And the IEBC has been asked to explain to Kenyans in detail how a total of over 1 million votes were illegally transferred in 12 counties in the country, despite IEBC chairperson of Chebukati assuring Kenyans that the situation has been rectified and the 3 officials involved are being investigated. Political leaders say that the explanation is not enough and that the commission should reassure Kenyans that the illegal transfer will not affect the August 9th elections. Tujibebe, Kenya Party leader and candidate for Kiambu Governor William Kiboko, says Chebukati's explanation is not enough and Kenyans need more information on the issue. Among the affected counties are Nairobi, Wajir, Mandera and Nyeri.
Wamesema wameondoa watu walikuwa transferred. What evidence do they have? Who transferred them? Nani alitransfer watu in the beginning? What game is it they're playing? They need to come out clear and say, for example, watu waliondolewa kutolewa kwa station zao wakapelekwa station zingine. What may have caused that? There are certain things zilikuwa zifanyike within certain times, kama kit, inspection of kit na kufanya sijui mahali ofisi zilikuwa go downs na nini. All those things were not announced.
According to Kabogo, who appeared on NTV, Chebukati should also inform Kenyans if IEBC is ready to hold free and fair elections.
Watuambie zaidi, wafafanue zaidi, ili tuelewe. These tricks of this commission sisi tunazijua. You believe and understand kuwa 2017, 3 days before election, huyu chairman alisema kulingana na maoni yake hawana uwezo wa kusema wanaweza fanya uchaguzi that will be seen to be free, fair.
Questions continue to be directed to IEBC after Chebukati initially denied that there were no transfers, but that investigations were underway after Deputy President William Ruto stated that more than 800,000 voters had been moved illegally. This comes as a total of 22,120,448 Kenyans are registered as voters in the August 9th general election, according to a report by KPMG. Chebukati has indicated that the electronic register will be published anytime.
22,120,458. That is the register. That's the number of registered voters who will participate in the 2022 elections. The Commission promised to certify and gazette the register of voters. I think after this briefing, the Commission will meet and certify the register, and the register will be gazetted. So that will be done. I believe the gazette notice then should be available tomorrow or day after.
Nairobi Senator and UDA Nairobi Gubernatorial candidate Johnson Sakaia presented himself at the DCI headquarters in the company of his lawyers Edwin Kamoth and Elias Mutuma. Sakaia was honoring summons by detectives 3 days after he presented himself to DCI, who are investigating the authenticity of his degree certificate. The degree issued by Team University in Uganda has been a bone of contention after 4 complainants petitioned the IEBC Dispute Resolution Committee to revoke his nomination on grounds that he acquired the degree fraudulently. The claims were, however, dismissed by the tribunal, which upheld his nomination and ruled that the IEBC lacked the legal mandate to verify the authenticity of candidate certificates. This as the Commission for University Education has reiterated that the revocation of the recognition of his degree still remains until the Nairobi Senator furnishes the Commission with, among other things, his application for the course, letter of admission from the university, courses units, transcripts, among other documents. Meanwhile, Sakaia has asked both the DCI and CUE to agree who among them should be given the documents.
On Friday, the DCI officers spent the whole day at CUE. Then they all came out with the same letter. So we've also asked these institutions to agree who wants what, so that we can answer them, because it's the same government. So that so this is a summons by the law from CUE. I think it was in media. We have not received anything formal. Once they send it, we are ready to abide by each and every process. We have nothing whatsoever to hide.
LSK has also raised its voice on the same. Eric Theory is the LSK president.
We are worried that if left unaddressed, this is an issue that is going to go into creating an electoral result that will be put in doubt in terms of whether it is a fair result or not.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Arseto. Good morning.
Forgiveness is always conditional. Even before God, there's nothing like unconditional forgiveness.
Government doesn't pay you pension until you retire. In fact, they have no money for you. The day you retire, they look for it.
This country is punishing many young people. These young people are more susceptible to be deceived, to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off.
Let us also talk about where we want our country to go. You know, we are a population of very young people.
We're in a state of capture. The judiciary is under duress. Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. You don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so.
By the way, let me tell you, these guys are so persuasive. I'm telling you, they can persuade you to sell your grandmother. I'm telling you, they can sell sand in the desert.
City, has anybody on this program said to you as a guest, saying, "Oh, shut up, we don't want to be told what to do"? Has you ever that kind of? Has anybody been
I will not listen.
A bit of advice? Because you're working on the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning, and it looks like it's going to be a good Tuesday. Let's have a look at what's going on the roads today. Not much on Mombasa Road today. Looks pretty good, and we're getting into the city without too much of an issue, at least for now. Taking a look at the Thika Superhighway, a little bit of traffic has started to build up as you get towards that Pangani roundabout, rather underpass, but it will not be too crazy. Just taking an aerial view around what's going on right now. Tuesday started off right. Hopefully we can keep it just so. Take a look at what's going on about half hour. So let us know what's going on where you are. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
How are you doing? Welcome to Tuesday. Kenya's biggest conversation enters the second day of the week. It's Eric Ndu. Let's see if City can join us.
It would appear that City's on a Meet the People tour this time of the day.
Anasalimia jamaa na marafiki. Raia. Anaomba kura. Somewhere out there.
Yeah. In the atmosphere.
Meet the People tour. Yeah? How you doing though, Ndu?
I, as in myself.
Yes.
The three of us.
You personally.
Ndu and I and myself, we are fine, thank you. We've had a conversation with ourselves and we've realized, let's just do this thing.
Yeah, you have no choice but to just conform.
We've just agreed. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Whoever shows up when they need to show up will do the business. Hand over the baton to the next one. City's dancing.
Yes. How you doing?
Super.
What are the people saying?
City's dancing. There's no music.
The people are saying,
wow,
we are the people.
Eh?
We are the people.
We are the people.
You know, these elections that we are going to have in the country, otherwise known as country of Kenya, my friend, they're going to be earth-shaking. We are going to see changes that we never thought we would see. Yeah.
Why?
There's a certain air of independence that seems to have hit the voter in this country. The voter has woken up to their real power and to their ability and to what is actually their rightful position in this country. And that one, my friend,
So how is it going to manifest?
It's going to manifest itself in two ways. One, you'll find that in the strongholds where people assumed that that position was an eternal one, there'll be changes. You'll find situations where the anointed ones whom the parties of that region favor may not necessarily be the ones who will win the seat.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, because
Lucky don't say
if the person is someone who the people like, they will certainly win. If the person was relying on a wave that the party would bring, ole kwake.
Kuisha wao.
That one. Asemaye kesho ni mwongo.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yes.
City, ask Eric how he's doing this morning.
I was heading in that direction. Now, let
voila.
me just arrive there quickly. Eric, how are you doing today?
Right there quickly. Like you can make a decision. You were just trotting along. He's like, okay, let's add some speed to this thing. Move the caboose.
Let's turbocharge this thing. And now, Eric, how are you today?
I'm very well.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yes. Welcome.
Thank God.
Yes.
I'm feeling kind of... It's only Tuesday.
You're feeling kind of rather.
You're feeling Thursday like this.
Rather. Neither. You're feeling neither rather.
He's not feeling at least.
No, not at least. Not today.
As if.
No, necessarily.
Surely.
We'll ask Ednah. Ednah has some things. She can use to inject some life.
You're talking about the energy that she's exhibiting today.
Yes.
It's Tuesday.
She's in good stead.
But you ought to be in good stead today because it's cold.
Muganga.
I love it. Mwagangi what?
Muganga. Hajigangi.
A witch doctor doesn't witch doctor themselves.
Actually, that reminds me. I saw a meme yesterday. You see those adverts that are usually plastered on telephone posts.
Love doctor and all these things. Yes.
Muganga mashuhuri kutoka Pemba.
Ndio. Mapenzi, kazi,
kufunga mpenzi.
Yes.
Nakimbia such things.
Yes. Now someone posted and said that the mganga that they were waiting to give them the love potion ameachwa na bibi yake.
What I think happened, he used the wrong potion.
Hey.
And it worked.
Sheesh.
Or a stronger mganga.
Divined something.
Divined something on the wife. Welcome to the conversation, everybody. We are going to have several guests throughout the show today. Let me start with the 9 o'clock. So yesterday we had Wavinya Ndeti, who is seeking to be the governor of Machakos County, right?
Right.
One of her competitors is going to be joining us in the studio, and this is Nzioka Waita. He is a party leader of Chama cha Uzalendo, CCU, and is a gubernatorial candidate for Machakos County. He's going to come and tell us what he wants to do for Machakos, should he get elected as the second governor of Machakos County. So Nzioka, 9 a.m. Okay? At 8 o'clock, there's a conversation that started last week, and this is with regards to propaganda, fake news, what is it called? Misinformation, disinformation, and all those things. And malinformation. Alphonse Shiundu, who is a Kenya editor at Africa Check, will be joining us this morning at 8 o'clock to talk about the Kenya elections, fake news, internet propaganda, which way for this newly enlightened voter, as CT has said. 7 a.m. CT's doppelganger will be in the studio.
Let's just put this thing to bed once and for all.
We will have two CT Mugas in the studio.
One who goes by the name CT Muga.
And the other one
who goes by the name of
Professor
George.
Dr. George Wajackoyah, the fifth. Yes. Presidential candidate Wajackoyah, Professor Wajackoyah, will be with us at 7 o'clock. Let's see. He says, you know what, Kenyans, let's just think differently this time. It's not the first time that he's on the ballot, but he's going to come and tell us why he wants us to think different. His campaign messaging has been very clear. It's caught on, in social media and other social places. And so we'll be having an engagement with him. So keep it right here for that and more. In the meantime, fellow Kenyans spoke to us yesterday.
Indeed, and things are happening. A bit of a worry note. We're looking at 252 people having tested positive for COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. Positivity rate now at 12.6%. We came off 9.9% yesterday morning. It's taken a jump by about 3 percentage points, and it doesn't look good. This is now where we were last week on Friday with these numbers. And so, with that, fellow Kenyans have been asked once again to don masks in public places, in places of worship, in public service vehicles, malls, such. The mask mandate in public places has become mandatory again because we're looking at a rise in COVID-19 cases. Look,
we are past 10% now.
Absolutely. We've been past 10% for about 5 days. But unfortunately, it's been steadily rising from 2.1% actually, about 2 weeks ago. And now look at that, 10% in 2 weeks. One would say that these are worrying numbers, right? Because it's quite a jump to make in such a short period of time, especially after we've come off 5 months of being under 2%, you see? And so then you take a jump of that number in 2 weeks, eyebrows go up, and we say, okay, so what's going on here? Kagwe has also appealed for vaccination, guys. Look, we've had these 27 million vaccines come into the country over time, and we're saying that still we have quite a number of vaccines available for folks to go in and get jabbed. About 10 million vaccines available in the country. Please come out and get them. So just for purposes of clarification, he has said Kenyans in confined places such as PSVs, aircrafts, offices, supermarkets, offices, and places of worship will have to wear masks. The average has gone up from 0.6% at the beginning of May to 10.4% just this week. So you can see where the worry is coming from. He's also gone on to say, look, guys, vaccination, we're going into the cold season, which is a recipe for the spread of COVID-19. Goes without saying, if you look at what has happened around the world, that you had the surges in countries that went into the winter months, or that the seasons were changing, and Kenya's going into that right now, going into the winter. And if we're going to do a comparison, we're seeing the same thing happen in South Africa, where we're seeing a rise in the cases where South Africa has recorded 0 temperatures for the last 1 week. So same thing is happening there. So while this is going on, don your masks, get vaxxed, get double vaxxed, get booster vaxxed.
Watuambie tu hizi vax ziko wapi. Hivyo tu ndio tunataka kujua.
You know, there's always the detail that Eric is highlighting here. It is good that we have this 27 million. Where are they?
We've had 27 million in totality. So right now, there are about 10 or so million available in the different counties. So if you were to go to...
minus 17.
Right.
Okay.
So if you were to go to...
So we can assume that half of 17, 8.5 million people have been vaccinated.
Well, yeah, if we're going to look at the numbers, we're looking about 30% of the population has been vaccinated. 30% of the adult population has been completely vaccinated, right?
Absolutely.
Yes, that's what we're saying, double vaccinations. Or at least the one-shot vaccination if that's what you needed to do. Remember that we also did hear from CAS Mwangangi that they had to chuck about 1.8 million vaccines because the shelf life had come to a head.
Okay, let's take this break then. 19 minutes after 6. We're live streaming the show on SpiceFM KE. Keep it right here as we will be saying hello to you shortly. Just say hi to us, okay?
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This nation has never healed genuinely from the 2000-2008 violence. We've never had a healing process. We swept it under the rug.
Let me tell you, the handshake was the most disastrous political event in the history of country after the coup attempt of 1982.
There is no Kikuyu pothole, Luo lack of water, or Kamba, lack of traffic.
Yeah.
There is no Luya lack of drugs in the hospitals. Or Jaluo one. All our issues are the same issues.
If you are in a room and just about everybody in that room has a court case or another, what impression does that give you?
What are you saying? Why haven't you done it in the last 20 years? But they're telling us, like August, some miracle is going to happen. My friend, I want to tell Kenyans you'll be in for a rude shock.
The Situation Room. Kenya's biggest conversation.
Looking at mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning at 11 degrees. We'll see highs of 24 today. It's partly cloudy at 13 in Nakuru, highs of 24 and lows of 13. It's partly cloudy at 12 in Nyeri at 12. At 11 it will be the low today, going to highs of 23. We'll see highs of 22 in a clear Eldoret, currently at 10 degrees. And that will be today's low. It's raining this morning in Mombasa at 23. We'll see highs of 29. And we'll see highs of 29 as well in a wet Malindi at 25. Mostly cloudy conditions at 17 in Kisumu, highs of 28. And we'll see highs of 27 in a mostly cloudy Kakamega, currently at 14. Mostly clear conditions in Kampala, highs of 26 and lows of 16. And we're looking at 22 and cloudy in Dar es Salaam. We'll see highs of 30 down to lows of 22. It's 4 degrees and really cold this morning in Johannesburg. Highs of 17 will come back down to lows of 4. And 26 and rain showers in Lagos we'll see highs of 29 and lows of 24. Kinshasa's clear at 21. We'll go to highs of 31 today, back down to lows of 21. Let's look out into Beijing. Well, smog is really low today at 32. It's going to go to an amazing high of 37 today, down to lows of 25. Rain showers in Paris at 16. There's a thunderstorm warning at yellow. And we'll see highs of 25. 23 will be the high in London, where it's clear at 13. At 22 in New York, well into the summer. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 17.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Everybody's online this morning. Jenga Wakwendeka says, Pamoja Sana, good morning. Butula is where Vincent Ogutu is. Bade Ashley, good morning to you. Where have you been? Good to have you in the room this morning. Kimi Lily is locked with Amos Freeman, and Dactario Choki says he's tuned in as well. All right. Bob Arena says, good morning from Kitengela. What is it?
Nothing. I'm just listening to you.
You're just doing in front of your face.
Those are agreeable sounds.
Okay, no problem.
Yes.
So William Munga, a real Munga. Munga says, good morning, CT specifically. You cannot wrap your arms around the waist of the earth. Nungo
is waist.
Pini Kirom.
Pin. P-I-N-Y is pronounced Pin Kirom.
He says it's a proverb from Rodi Kopani.
Yes. That place.
Rodi Kopani.
Yes.
Ati Nungo Pin Kirom means you cannot wrap your arms around
the earth.
Yes.
The earth.
Exactly.
Okay.
So Kirom is around the waist.
Rome is to meet.
Nungo is the waist.
Nungo is the waist.
Okay.
And the pin.
Nungo means waist.
Globe, planet.
Allah.
Well, Nungo is waist.
Waist.
Yes.
You learn something new every day.
Indio.
Things are coming together in my mind. Anyway, wa ebubere mumias.
Kanungo.
I knew we were going to head in
that. Go very far. Hey, you get it?
Teremos.
You get it?
Kulawaya. Okay.
Hey, Andrew Franklin believes that a 48 days and a wake-up call is coming in terms of the general election. However, he says curfews and lockdowns are looming. Those words have been spewed out over the last 24 hours. All right. Good to have you guys in the room. Dennis Kirui says, good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Tuned in from Mombasa this morning. We see you, sir. Karibu sana. Dennis Hasinote says he's tuned in from Lunga Viwandani. Sabel Heri, good morning. Tuned in from Dubai. Have a terrific Tuesday. And yourself as well. Galvani says he's tuned in from work this morning. And Jermaine says, good morning. All the way from County 001 is where Morgan is. Glad to have you guys in the room. Karibuni sana.
Welcome, everybody, City.
Right.
Nungo Pin Kirom.
Pin Kirom. Yes.
Okay.
It is not possible for the globe to meet itself. Today, we are in, take a guess.
Pate
Island.
That is absolutely true.
That's
we
what
are
you told us.
Pate Island.
We're listening.
I'm trying to find where I wrote the proverb.
Usi Pate.
Nisi Pate. Ata nikipata. Nisi Pate.
Pate.
Yes. Pate is part of the archipelago, the Lamu archipelago. So what you will find that the language that is spoken there is Kiswahili, but it is an interesting dialect because if you come from Lamu, you will be told unaongea Kiamu. Yes. You may think it is Kiswahili, just like when you speak the Kiswahili from Zanzibar, ni kusema ni Kiunguja. Okay. Now, if you've ever been to Lamu, one of the things that you'll find beautiful about the archipelago is it is scenic, very, very scenic. With the exception of Lamu itself, you will not see any vehicle anywhere. It is donkeys and it is boats. Now, Charles,
What to enjoy.
You're still looking for this thing.
If I were you, I would listen to the story and enjoy it instead of assigning yourselves a function that nobody had asked you to assign for yourself. So, this is the problem of having a big book. Because the pages are so many. And this is also the problem of writing proverbs at night.
Yeah.
Because you write the proverbs at night.
Were you awake, City, when you
When
were
you were
writing?
writing this thing,
yes.
are you sure you've got the right book?
It is the right book. At least the cover looks the same. But have no fear. Have no fear. I have a plan B. So if you just give me one moment.
You have a complementary electronic system.
Yes.
Okay.
I have that one. So that one will come in handy. All right. Now, the proverbs, as I was doing the what you call research, they were in Kiswahili but then translated into English. Now, these proverbs, the ones I really, really loved was this one. They all have to do with peace.
Okay.
Amani haipatikani ila kwa ncha ya upanga. Translated, peace comes not directly translated, saved by the point of a sword. Panga as in sword, as in machete. Okay. Now, I thought about this proverb and said, peace isn't found directly except by way of a sword. And I was thinking, the role of a sword, it's a weapon of war. A sword is used for protection. A sword is used for threatening. But it isn't an implement that you will simply ignore. And I was thinking, why peace? So do you threaten people for peace? And I said, no. The understanding that harm may come to you by way of a sword, the sword now represents the harm, it will deter you from taking steps that ordinarily you would take. When you think of the consequences of your action. So the tip of the sword and what the sword can do is that reminder of it actually represents consequences. This is the thought that came to my mind. Yes.
So the tip of the sword is basically like pointing at you.
Yes.
It's just touching you with the tip.
Precisely.
Showing you.
Yes.
Can you feel how sharp this is?
And the tip doesn't exist without the sword.
You want to make peace.
Yes, so you say, hey, you misunderstood me, brother. That's what you heard. And I heard, no, I didn't mean, no. What I meant was...
Can you do jokes?
Surely. Where would you call jokes?
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Let's look at the newspaper headlines quickly. Just about a minute to the traffic break. Okay, www.standardmedia.co.ke. The story that they are profiling today is the joy and pain of Mtumba merchants, a day at Nairobi's pocket-friendly Gikomba open-air fashion market. So the writers spent time here, and there is even video content on this particular story, spending time with Mtumba merchants in Gikomba and profiling the business.
Okay,
story.
So this one that we heard from the officers of EACC yesterday, this comes at the same time when a former NLC boss has been charged now with land fraud. We'll look at that story later. But the court has now frozen 1.2 billion shillings assets of a ministry official. There will be an ease in paradise for an assistant director for valuation at the Ministry of Lands after the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission obtained orders freezing his assets worth 1.2 billion shillings. High Court Judge Esther Minor issued the order stopping Nicholas Ochiel, his wife Terry Muthoni, his brother Richard Omondi, and their 2 companies from dealing with properties spread across Nairobi, Kisumu, Sakaia, and Kajiado until the suit by the EACC is concluded. According to Justice Minor, pending the hearing and the determination of the application, the court issues an order restraining the respondents, their agents, servants, or any other persons from selling, transferring, charging, leasing, or in any other way alienating the listed properties. The 17 properties registered in Mr. Ochiel's name frozen by the judge include a house in Karen worth 80 million shillings, an undeveloped land in Parklands worth 100 million shillings, and a commercial building in Ugunja Town, Sakaia County, valued at 190 million. Others are 2 apartment blocks in Lolwe Estate in Kisumu City, valued at 109 million, a residential home within the Lakeside City valued at 15.5 million, and plots in Nairobi, Kajiado, and Sakaia. His wife Muthoni had 4 properties frozen that include an apartment block in Thome Estate, valued at 130 million, a 5-bedroom house in Mirima Estate in Nairobi, 5 acres in Kisumu, and half an acre in Nairobi. Also stopped was the couple from disposing of their vehicles valued at 10.5 million shillings and another piece of land in Nairobi registered in their company's name. How did all of this start? Last week on Friday, EACC sued Ochiel, saying he had amassed massive wealth which is not commensurate with his legitimate sources of income. EACC, through lawyer Grace Minor, said between January 2003 and November 2018, Ochiel's legitimate income totaled 6.3 million shillings. As per, it's not possible that the ones that
total
we see
for the year,
total everything.
Okay. So
for all the years.
For all the years.
All.
You got it.
Since he got employed.
12 years, right? From 2000,
from 96.
So, we're looking at 15 years. 2003 to 2018. The income totaled 6.3 million. But he had properties and cash in the account within that period totaling 1.2 billion. Bit of a difference, isn't it?
Yeah.
According to the commission, Ochiel was first employed at the Ministry of Lands as a valuer in 1996 and rose through the ranks until he was promoted to a senior assistant in the Director's Office of Valuation. Within the period, lawyer Minor told the court the public officer incorporated 2 companies and used them as conduits of corruption while colluding with his wife and brother. He exploited his official position in trust in the Ministry of Lands for his private gain. He took undue advantage of his position to confer benefit to himself by entering into contracts with private entities for services he was employed and paid to provide at the ministry.
Valuation.
Right. That's what he was supposed to do anyway. But then he was taking, some jobs out, off the cuff and saying, charge me. Let me charge you just a little something for this. So they're saying the 2 companies accumulated wealth worth 1,365,054,008 shillings.
8 shillings.
8 specifically. And when they were summoned to explain, they could only justify assets worth 158 million, which meant that the balance of 1,206,851,274 shillings was acquired through graft. So this one that you can't explain.
Right. He was employed as a
assistant
valuer
at the Ministry of Lands as a valuer in 1996, and then he was now promoted to senior assistant.
Did his position and his employment terms prohibit him from conducting business as a valuer for other people? I'm just asking. No. He was a civil servant, but did it prohibit him from having a company that did valuation? Because it's a business. There are people who are called valuers, and perhaps he could justify that he was a valuer, and as a valuer, he had businesses.
But he was hired by the ministry to do the same thing. So basically what he was doing...
What they're saying is he took undue advantage of his position.
Oh, that doesn't
to
mean...
To confer benefit unto himself.
Yes. No, that doesn't mean he was doing valuation.
But the 2 companies that he opened, the 2 companies that he used as conduits for these things, can I tell you what they were called?
Please tell me.
Ternic Valuers Limited and Ternic Enterprises Limited. So according to Miss Minor, Grace Minor, the lawyer, that he would get clients... as valuers, as a valuer, get clients who needed this valuation done and steer them away from the ministry, which he was supposed to be doing this work for anyway.
Actually, if you were to look at it perhaps a little more critically, it's not just a question of, you don't amass that sort of money by just value.
Come on, of course, there's a lot more that he did, that's
Yes.
for sure. 1.2 billion shillings that you can't explain.
You either value it in a way that the client wants, or you value it in a way that perhaps disadvantages the parent.
Someone.
Yes, exactly.
Let me tell you something else.
Please tell me something.
According to Ms. Minor, the lawyer who's taken this case to court on behalf of the state, the official used privileged official information at the ministry to blackmail people for financial gain and incorporated his wife and brother as conduits of the corrupt practices to conceal sources of his massive wealth.
Conceal. Wife and brother. Conceal. Right.
We established that he illegally acquired the assets when he entered into contracts with property development companies, organizations, and members of the public to facilitate valuation, payment of governance stamp duty, title processing, and purportedly conducting forensic audit services. Voila.
So you are the director of valuation, and your company is offering valuation, and it comes to you, and you sign, and then
That's a direct conflict of if In fact, if you're looking for a definition,
I can do it for you.
Yes, I can. I can guarantee.
Well, my friend.
You know, this is Ministry of Land.
Where?
1.2 billion.
Billion.
Kashamba hapa Karen, 50 billion. Kashamba hapa Kisumu, how much?
But you know how it also works.
109 million.
If you are a valuer and someone, say for instance, is subdividing his property, they need not pay you in cash. No. If the subdivision gives the owner some 50 plots, your payment could amount to 5 plots. It could amount to something or the other.
You know?
Yeah. But the bigger issue here is that there are many people who are in government who do not understand deliberately what the term conflict of interest means. Because as far as they're
I like that you said they do not understand deliberately.
No, it's deliberate. Because by the time you are employed and you're in that senior position, it means a certain element of formal education has passed through your brain.
City.
So, yes, please.
Kenyans understand very well. Huyu jamaa anafanya kwa land na hata hana kakitu.
Yes.
Surely, what kind of Seleman is this?
Eric, you do not know just how true that statement is, because I remember when I was a headmaster, it was the question somebody would ask me, Lakini. So I would ask him, okay, let's just have this discussion. So what am I supposed to sell? Chalk. The blackboards are fixed on the wall. Chairs. I mean, this is a school. How exactly do you?
School fees, kada.
It's a private school. Government school possible because you can have a stream where
that doesn't exist, Coco.
No, it exists, but it's you.
It's you.
Yes. Yeah, the stream, like that guy who created schools.
Imagine
in the thing, created schools and got.
Let's take a break though. It's 32 minutes to 7. Let's look at the traffic.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Guess what? Cold Stone Creamery has amazing deals for you to indulge every day. This month, enjoy deals on 2 cups of creamy delicious ice cream from as low as 600 shillings and ice cream cakes from as low as 1,800 shillings. Visit any of our stores in Nairobi or Mombasa and indulge. Cold Stone Creamery, the ultimate ice cream experience.
Are you a recruiter looking for the ideal candidate? What if we told you there's an easier, faster, and unbiased way to hire? Forget all the time wasting and costly hiring mistakes and instead focus on reviewing the best suited candidates from the start. Sounds good, right? We offer you a seamless recruitment portal and access to our thousands of job seeker profiles to suit your hiring.
There's traffic on Mombasa Road just a little bit as you're actually outbound, just around the Maradima stretch. So folks, remember, the turn-off that General Motors going into the city, you cannot use. So Enterprise is the way to go. If you're on Mombasa Road trying to make that turn, use Enterprise. Otherwise, you're going to be going to Cabanas and then taking the long route round. Right. All right, what's happening on Langata Road today? Traffic has already started to build up as you're getting towards the interchange. Likely to be really busy as you go through the morning. It's also really busy on Jogo Road already as you're getting towards that roundabout at the City Stadium. It'll slow you down just a tad, and then getting towards the Kamkunji roundabout yet again is going to slow you down a bit here and there. The Thika Superhighway is doing that thing it did yesterday, but not too crazy at this moment. We're looking at just beyond the Utali Drift is where there's some traffic heading towards Survey. Coming off of Kiambu Road is where folks are actually quite moving in droves today. So there we also have bumper-to-bumper traffic. Let's take a look at around 7 o'clock and see how things have changed. And let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done.
All right, 20 minutes to 7.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Yesterday, the IEBC, after an audit that was conducted by KPMG, came out at Bomas and met with political parties, agents, and the media, and they said, we now know how many people are going to participate in this year's general election. And that number is a paltry 22 point something million voters. Okay? 22,120,458. Those are the people who are registered to vote this year. It's an increase from 2017's 19.6 million voters. Okay? However, if you start now digging deeper into those statistics is when you realize, okay, so what's happened? Number one, 40,883 polling stations in 2017. This time we have some extra 6,000 polling centers. The number, if you look at that, if you look at the number of people who hold IDs in the country, it's 29.56 million people who hold IDs. Only 22 million people have registered as voters. So there's some 7 million people who have IDs.
If they had IDs, maybe then they would be okay, sour.
They have IDs and they're like, Okay, going deeper. The diaspora voters are 10,444, which represents 0.05% of registered voters.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these are the people who contribute the most in terms of forex into the country.
Right,
But they are only 0.05%
of the voting population.
The number of youth, the percentage of the youth voter is 39.84%. And this is the people between the ages of 18 and 34. It's less than 40%. Okay, let's just round it off to 40%. 40% of the voters are youth. 60% of the voters are above youth.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole focus that's been there of the political campaigns targeting the youth and saying, you know what, this is a youthful election. A majority of the Kenyans are youth, and therefore we have to look at how to entice the youth. They're not voters.
They are just the youth.
They're just the youth. Are we together?
Oh, my brother, we certainly are together.
Yes. Now, what does that portend for political campaigns? Especially, look at the guest that we're going to be having next, Professor Wajackoyah.
Mm-hmm.
He's really appealing to that demographic of the youth. If you look at all the social media videos and all, it's the youth population. They're 40% of the voters.
But you know what is also of interest? If you look at those dynamics, one of the things that has come out in these elections, the using of polling. It means people who want whatever seat it is or have been keen to use scientific methods to determine their positions. Are we saying that they didn't use the same methodology and the same schematics to figure out the actual numbers of
the majority of the voter in a certain demographic?
Yes. Are we saying that they went about doing all these things that they're doing about their popularity? Because when a poll is conducted, they don't ask you if you're a voter or not. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. They just ask you. Now, are we saying they missed that? Because if they had, then arguably one would say that their focus would have been different. Yes.
It's interesting because the other bit of the statistic that's also very, very important here is There are 49.12% women voters.
How many again?
49.12%.
Women voters.
Male are 50.88%. So you have slightly more male voters than women voters.
Yes.
You have a majority adult, post-youth voters.
Mm-hmm.
So, like City, you're asking, when the pollsters are actually doing these polls and when the political campaigns are doing their research to see how to target, how to message their campaigns, was this not captured?
This is what I would have argued you would start with. Because if you're going to target your campaigns, you need to know the demographics that you need to appeal to. That's where you would start. So I'm assuming they did. And if they did, what did they find? Because if we were to go by the focus that we've seen, it is clear that their finding pointed them towards what? The youth. Yes. And yet now, information that we're getting tells you that that particular age group, yes, they may be large in number, but in terms of their voting capacity, it is somewhat diminished.
Yep.
Yes. But if you think that that is a problem, page 6 of the Star, there was this KPMG audit that the IEBC had set in motion.
Yes.
The headline reads, Audit unearths serious tampering of voters' registers in 10 counties. Yes. An audit report, and I read here, of the voters' register conducted by KPMG has unearthed serious internal tampering of the crucial document in at least 10 counties. In at least, as in minimum. This, even as it emerges that the total registered voters stand as 22,120,458 in 46,232 polling stations. The audit revealed that a total of 246
and the layer too.
Just read it as it is.
Dead voters
Okay.
were removed from the register.
Okay.
246,000?
Yes. 246,265. 246,265. That's the number. Removed. Okay. The commission held a late evening meeting on Monday to certify the register and pave way for the gazettement, which IEBC announced will happen last Wednesday. The IEBC chairman, Wafula Chebukati, on Monday said at least 3 members of staff at the commission are being investigated over the irregular activity. So, IEBC in the spotlight again. But the good thing is this, they are the ones who actually set in motion the audit.
Right.
Which means they wanted to find out if there were problems. That has to be applauded. We have to laud them. We have to say, you did a good thing. Now, what they're going to do with it, we will wait to see.
It's something that ought to be seen.
Do you remember at the end of this conversation, you're talking about this gentleman who had these virtual schools that he kept, the money was being sent to?
Yes.
Now, something very interesting. The Auditor General, apparently, was blocked from auditing student data because there was some 60 billion that the Ministry of Education was supposed to have spent. And they said, okay, has to do with disbursements of monies to school. The capitation based on the number of students
that you have at school.
They were blocked. This is a story in the Business Daily. Auditor blocked from student data in 6 billion probe.
Who's blocking the auditor?
Blocking the
Ministry. Let me read it.
Why?
The Education Ministry is on the spot for denying the Auditor General access to a student's database to allow her to scrutinize 60 billion expenditure, raising fears that the transparency in the use of free education funds. The state auditor says it was not possible to verify the expenditure of 59 billion 541,584,000. And then there's some shillings. Due to the inability to access the students' enrollment data in the National Education Management Information System, NEMIS, as a result of restriction by the State Department of Early Learning and Basic Education. So the story goes on to talk about what the Auditor General has said, has clearly indicated to them the consequences of
That's an illegality.
Come on.
It is here.
As a state ministry, you are obligated.
Not only obligated,
at whatever
the
time
law, you're obligated. The law gives
demands
you
that you open your books for the Auditor General at request.
Yes, it does.
That's what it says. It is very clear.
Yes, there's section 9E of the Public Audit Act 2015 clearly states.
And you quote.
And I actually, now that you mention it, I will quote. The Act states that the Auditor General or an authorized, not unauthorized, an authorized officer shall have the powers to unrestricted access to all books, records, returns, reports, electronic or otherwise, and other documents of entities listed under Article 229(4) of the Constitution.
You know what's going to happen? And I can smell it from here. You know what I see? That all this time people are making noises, made it to the papers, etc., etc. Whomever is going to do whatever they need to do to get whatever evidence removed, and then they'll say, we have opened. We've given access.
And there's something
this
called
is
a
just
digital
noise.
footprint.
Of course there is. But then you start doing your trace.
They'll
but
do their trace.
They would have been caught with their pants down if they had given access immediately.
So are you saying, so what has the Auditor General told them in her writing?
The Auditor General warned them that failure to grant access to the NEMIS system is in contravention of this
the said act
that I've just read, which means it's a criminal offense. As you correctly put it, it's criminal.
Yes, it is. They will grant, look, they're going to grant access. They will. They will. There'll be a little bit more noise made day 1, day 2, then they will grant the access. What happened in between there now is just for you to figure out. You can't be in such direct contravention of the law without something funny going on. Come on. Or the General comes and asks you, open your books because you must check this, and you say, actually, no, we won't.
They'll say, no, we're actually at the point updating the system.
That's
so that's why we can't give you that.
Yeah. Then they say, but now there's no problem, it's open.
We're updating the system.
It is short-sightedness. It is short-sightedness because there is a beginning and an end point to all these transactions. It is not earth-shattering to determine how it is you can actually figure out what happened. Yes. They'll bring in a forensic audit and they will find it. And they'll find whoever it is. This is actually a short-term delay.
Yes, no. It is.
No.
So the Ministry of Education,
same
ministry, needs some help. And they're saying private schools, whereas they might have been this brother-sister rivalry before, sibling rivalry, we actually do need your help. The government has turned to the private sector to avert a crisis in the already over-enrolled public secondary schools during next year's double intake, because we know there will be one, right? We're looking at December to the end of January when the KCSE and the KCPE will be sat. And then we're going into the new system. George Wajackoyah yesterday asked parents and children in private schools that have junior secondary school sections to keep them there to reduce competition for public secondary schools when grade 7 rolls out in January. Should I repeat? Cabinet Secretary George Wajackoyah yesterday asked parents with children in private primary schools that have junior secondary school sections to keep them there to reduce competition for public secondary schools when grade 7 rolls out in January. Because usually the practice is, if your child is in a private primary school, by the time they're going to high school, then your desire is to move them to a public high school.
Yep.
Now, George Wajackoyah is saying, please, we already have a problem here.
Stay where you are.
Stay where you are so that we can whittle down the drama that is bound to happen come January 2023. And
so
saying,
now we can start shifting them at senior secondary.
Yes. So he's saying for now, please just continue. If you have a secondary school, please just stay there so we don't have the drama. He's saying that the government has plans to place grade 7 learners in private schools, even those who are currently in the public system. They're seeing how they can push them to the private system because they just do not have the space, as opposed to the current practice where learners are only placed in public schools. So after the exam, usually we're going to place you in public schools, right?
Yep.
Now they're going to invite the public, or rather the private school, as an option to place because there will just be too many. According to him, learners remaining in private schools reduce the stiff competition that is witnessed when the transition to secondary schools happen amid concerns over preparedness. Under the CBC framework, the pioneer learners will transition to junior secondary school at the end of the primary cycle, grade 6, in November. And he says, I would like to encourage private schools, and for the purposes of junior secondary school, it would be important for the parents who already have children in private schools to retain them there so that we do not have the cutthroat competition that comes after Standard 8, and that can be postponed to Year 9, which is essentially what they'll be called now moving forward.
You know, private secondary schools have actually been pushing to be included in the secondary school enrollment.
Yes.
So now here they are. However, the question is, I still ask those questions. So what happens, because you're talking about people going into grade 7 there in secondary school, so they start getting into that secondary curriculum. Do you have the amenities for that? Do they need labs?
Yes, they do. So what happened last month, May, was that the ministry had what they like to call a consultative meeting with all the stakeholders. And they said, look, it's essentially when this partnership conversation really began in earnest. And they said, we need help because we don't have enough classrooms. Even that money that we had received to build more schools, or rather classrooms around the country, essentially has run out. So if private schools then have space and that you're willing, then please go ahead and build more classrooms so we can take on, and these are the specifications that we ask. Have a science lab, have an IT lab, and there was one other thing they said, but they gave a basic structure of what you needed if you were going to now build these additional rooms. So long as you have those 3 labs, then you would be all right. And so that's what the ministry then is telling private schools. These are just the basic requirements, and if you can do that, then we should be all right.
All right, in what way?
Then you can take on students.
Then you can take on students.
Yes, because the problem was the facilities usually. That schools that could take in students don't have the facilities, and you needed them at that level.
But do the public schools have those facilities?
Unfortunately, not all of them.
Question.
Not all of them.
Question.
That's not all of them do, unfortunately.
I remember when 844 was rolled out. At that particular point in time, there was one Mr. Kamodo who was Minister for Education around that same time. One of the things that was done right across the country was increasing just the space within which the students could actually study. Now, there are people who took it a lot more seriously than others. The areas of the country where people had built many Harambee schools, and the government very eagerly simply adopted these schools and made them government schools.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, with this one, what makes it trickier is just the numbers that we're dealing with are vast.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about 1 million students at a go.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there may have been plans, but those plans clearly are an ongoing process. And yet, we are saying that we want to admit students, as the saying is really, punde si punde.
Yeah, either which way, all of them are going.
So, this attitude of, look, we'll fix this as we go along, that's what I seem to see is being operationalized here. And yet, it ought to be, we are prepared when the students come in, the facilities
will be ready.
Yes, exactly. That is what it ought to be.
We'll be ready. What we've seen is development of classes. So money has been disbursed from the National Treasury to the Ministry of Education to build classrooms.
10 billion.
However, those other facilities, if you need labs, you need the chemistry lab, you need biology, you need the labs, you need the workshops. So if you don't have them, so what are we talking about, man? And what does that do to this generation of kids who are the experimental kids?
There's a thought, though, that runs through my mind. You see, private schools are just that, private schools, as we say.
Yeah.
Can't the government formalize these relationships? What do I mean by formalizing? Somebody who has the means to invest in a school, find a way of guaranteeing them certain things. Because the people going to those schools are still Kenyans, right? Let them take on the burden and the expense of putting up the institution. But tell them, for every institution, for everything that you do, this is what the government will do for you. So that if the government feels they're constrained, we talk about PPPs. Why not have a PPP in education? Formalize it. Not this hodgepodge discussion of we're not sure whether this should happen or there's this other issue of this hasn't happened. And I dare say, why don't they even extend it to the prison service? If the government has problems with building prisons.
That's rich, CT.
Watch. Keep it here for more conversations. In fact, we'll ask Professor Wajackoyah that question. You know, he wants to reintroduce the death penalty.
Okay.
It will decongest prisons.
Yeah, just, knock them off. Man.
Why privatize something?
Why?
Just remove the prison population out of it. Keep it here for more conversations. Good morning. It's 7 a.m.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dennis Aseto. President Uhuru Kenyatta said that the East African leaders have agreed to establish a regional force to try and end conflict in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo and called for an immediate ceasefire. The announcement was made after meeting in Nairobi of the 7-member East African Community on the security situation in the eastern DRC after a flare-up of violence. Heavy fighting in the eastern DRC has revived decades-old animosities between Kinshasa and Kigali, with the DRC blaming neighboring Rwanda for a recent resurgence of the M23 militia. The Ministry of Health has advised Kenyans on measures they should take to avoid being infected by the widespread flu that has largely been witnessed among Nairobi residents. The flu exhibits a plethora of symptoms ranging from a runny nose to sore throat and aching joints. Speaking Monday, Ministry of Health Acting Director General Dr. Patrick Amoth prescribed that those who have already been infected by the flu or have flu-like symptoms should remain in their homes to avoid transmitting it to others. He further gave more ways one can prevent themselves from being infected by the flu. Speaking in the same address, Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe announced that the government has reinstated the mandatory wearing of face masks in indoor settings as a containment measure to curb the spread of COVID-19 in the country.
Those who have not been vaccinated should do so immediately. Those who have been vaccinated and need a booster shot should take the booster shots immediately. And we appreciate that mask wearing is also part of the measures that we are supposed to be. And we explained earlier that the measures that we took at the time that we did them was as a result of the fact that we had gone down. But with regard to wearing of face masks, the mandatory wearing of face masks in open public spaces, where one is not in close proximity with another person, remains optional. However, one is required to wear a mask when in contact with other people in close confined spaces such as PSVs, aircrafts, offices, supermarkets, marketplaces, and places of worship.
Now, the IEBC has been asked to explain to Kenyans in detail how voters were illegally transferred in 12 counties in the country, despite IEBC chairperson Ofula Chebukati assuring Kenyans that the situation has been rectified and the 3 officials involved are being investigated. Political leaders say that the explanation is not enough and that the commission should reassure Kenyans that the illegal transfer will not affect the August 9th elections. Tujibebe, Kenya Party leader and candidate for Kiambu Governor William Kibongo, says Chebukati's explanation is not enough and Kenyans need more information on the issue. Among the affected counties are Nairobi, Wajir, Mandera and Nyeri.
Wamesema wameondoa watu walikuwa transferred. What evidence do they have? Who transferred them? Nani alitransfer watu in the beginning? What game is it they're playing? They need to come out clear and say, for example, watu waliondolewa kutolewa kwa station zao wakapelekwa station zingine. What may have caused that? There are certain things zilikuwa zifanyike within certain times, kama kit, inspection of kit na kufanya sijui mahali ofisi zilikuwa go downs na nini. All those things were not announced.
Questions continue to be directed to IEBC after Chebukati initially denied that there were no transfers, but that investigations were underway after Deputy President William Ruto stated that more than 800,000 voters have been moved illegally. This comes as a total of 22,120,458 Kenyans are registered to vote in the August 9th elections, according to a report by KPMG. Chebukati has indicated that the electronic register should be published anytime today.
22,120,458. That is the register. That's the number of registered voters who will participate in the 2022 elections. The Commission promised to certify and gazette the register of voters. I think after this briefing, the Commission will meet and certify the register, and the register will be gazetted. So that will be done. I believe the Gazette notice then should be available tomorrow or day after.
Now, Nairobi Senator and UDA Nairobi Gubernatorial candidate Johnson Sakaia presented himself at the DCI headquarters in the company of his lawyer Ednah and Elias Mutuma. Sakaia was honoring summons by detectives 3 days after he presented himself to DCI, who are investigating the authenticity of his degree certificate. The degree issued by Team University in Uganda has been a bone of contention after 4 complainants petitioned the IEBC Dispute Resolution Committee to revoke his nomination on grounds that he acquired the degree fraudulently. The claims were however dismissed by the tribunal, which upheld his nomination and ruled that the IEBC lacked the legal mandate to verify the authenticity of candidate certificates. This as the Commission for University Education has reiterated that the revocation of the recognition of his degree still remains until the Nairobi Senator furnishes the Commission with, among other things, his application for the course, letter of admission from the transcripts, among other documents. This is Newswire. Dennis Saseta. Good morning.
All right, a few minutes after 7 o'clock, what are we looking at? Nairobi's roads, or rather streets this morning, packed on the Thika Superhighway coming out towards the city. And that's going to look that way for some time as you get towards that Pangani underpass. It's looking quite messy there as well on Kiambu Road. And we're looking at bumper-to-bumper traffic in and outbound as you're getting into the city. Jogo Road started really early and we're still looking at that traffic happening there. Lunga also doing that thing. Likoni not looking bad as you're getting onto that interchange, then crisscrossing with Enterprise. So you should be all right there. Langata Road going towards the interchange. Crazy. On Uhuru Highway, heading out into the city and then out towards Westlands is what we're still looking at traffic here. So it looks like it's going to be a thing today. A little bit of traffic on the expressway today as well because of folks trying to make those necessary exits. So keep an eye on that one. Coming out of Westlands, use the Red Hill Link Road. You should be all right. Let's talk in half an hour or so and see what it looks like. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us there. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up.
Good morning and welcome to the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation. Happy Tuesday. It's the 21st day of June 2022. We have a guest in the studio, presidential candidate Professor George Wajackoyah of the Roots Party. Before we welcome and introduce him to the show, let's hear the day's proverb.
From Party.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, part of the Lamu Archipelago.
That one.
What does it do? That many islands in one place.
Appalachians of Archipelago.
That one. See, knew you guys would get it. Okay. Kiswahili, then interpreted. Amani haipatikani ila kwa ncha ya upanga.
That's a what?
Amani haipatikani
ila. No, the last thing you said, mchwa.
NCH ncha.
Ah, okay.
The point, the tip of the sword. Ncha ya upanga. Panga, as in machete.
Got it.
Right? Peace comes not save by the point of the sword.
Mm-hmm.
Excellency, what do you think of what do you think of the proverb?
Have you heard this proverb before, Prof?
Not at all, but if you translate it in Luya, I think I'll be able to grasp it.
You may, yeah?
Or Kiganda.
Or Kiganda.
Or even Luo.
We were, well, we here being me representing my colleagues, of this view that sometimes a sword or a machete is used either for some industrial use, domestic use, but is also a weapon. And sometimes just by having it or pointing it at someone, pointing the tip, it can be a threat. And we're saying that threat sometimes brings about peace, because the possibility of someone actually using that particular sword or machete on you will, should we say, usher you in the direction of suing for peace rather than continuing with the disagreement.
You make me remember the army sword.
Yes.
The ceremonial sword.
The one the president is given.
Yes, it has also some other symbolic meanings. But first of all, you have to excuse me because my voice is gone. This is how I make my living, and this is why. I mean, this is what makes me reach out to members of the public. But a sword has been symbolic in so many ways. One of the ways that I look at is during the Roman Empire kind of playwrights, where the sword was symbolizing some kind of gymnastic, futuristic, aquaristic kind of message to the audience, in that you can either use it to demonstrate, to achieve, to bring solace within the environment by making it as a token of semantic romance. You are romancing with the sword. You're showing the queen. You are demonstrating before the king. This is how loyal we are to your kingdom, and this is how prepared we are. Maybe that kind of narrative may also make or create some kind of sense.
It does, actually. It does.
Sense.
Professor George Wajackoyah, welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Is it very hot?
Not so much.
Not right now.
I do understand. And thank you for inviting me.
It's good to have you on the show. And I mean, you have really created quite a buzz with your presidential candidacy this time.
Right.
And we've been wanting to have this conversation with you. So we are actually privileged that you are here with us today.
Thank you.
Let's start with Professor George Wajackoyah decides, I would like to run for president.
Right.
When did this thought first cross your mind?
Thank you very much for inviting me in this studio. And I think I'll try to speak slowly, because normally when I'm irritated through nice and sweet words, the same way Solomon, when Solomon was writing his Solomonic poems to his mistresses or girlfriends, he used to bring in the language of kalamus, which means bang, which is symbolic to the Israelis, to the confederation of Judaism, passing the message, telling people this is what is going to be in future. As far as I'm concerned, I can't say much. What I know is that part of the world liberation has actually entailed my services. I've been involved in liberation movements when I was in exile in Britain. I've been involved in liberation movements in SWAPO, Mozambique, and most recently the Chiapas in Mexico, where I was part of those behind the brain of Sub-Commandant Marcos when he was fighting for the Chiapa revolutionary rights. And that informs you why I represent political agitations, or those who are fighting for freedoms. One of the elements or people are the Chadema party in Tanzania, which I represent. I also represent the people of Ethiopia, the Tigrays, against the insurgents of the Ethiopian government, which actually caused an insurrection within the domain of Tigray. I've also been involved in Chad. I was also one of the first lawyers for the SPLA in Southern Sudan. And I've also played a big role in liberation of this country through Raila Odinga and group Koigi Wamwere, Raila Odinga, Wanyeri Kihoro, while we were living in London. So the issue of becoming a president was not really very important. The issue was, how do we impact the skills we have acquired while outside? How do we come back to the country that we have grown in and known how the system works, given the fact that I was in the intelligence for a very, very long time working under Kanyotu. So those things impacted me. But above all, what made me think of this was the suffering I went through in UK, where I was a refugee, a grave digger, security guard, and I did a lot and I suffered a lot. So that in me forced me to find out what we can do rather than following, rather than jumping up and down like a frog. Why did you come back and bring that experience?
You talk about freedoms in some of these societies, looking at South Sudan, looking at Chad, looking at Ethiopia, and then coming off of freedoms fighting for in Kenya. Now, looking towards the presidency or looking towards these campaigns that we are, in the throes of right now, are there still freedoms that you think ought to be fought for in Kenya?
Absolutely.
And what are those?
Kenya is not free. Kenya imeshikwa na mateka. It's under siege of the political class. People who think that they can give direction for this country forever. If you look at them, they have come up with the decisive and divisional classic politics. You'll find out that now my opponents today have already divided the country into themselves. And if you look at the people they have appointed in their supposedly to be cabinet, you look at the Kenya Kwanza, you look at the 70% and the 30% in Western, you look at Raila Odinga, these are the same people. Now, does it mean that Kenyans are going to vote blindly while they know that they are going to have a repetitive psychophancy of lunacy, doing the same thing over and over again? No. Kenyans have seen now the real animal that they have been dealing with. They come camouflaged in so many ways. They come thinking that they're the best to lead the country. They were born with a silver spoon to lead. If my father is not in, I am in. If not, my mistress is in. If not, my wife is in. Come on. This lunacy has got to stop. And that's why I came up and I said, you know what? Even if we have so many people who are capable, let me come in and lead the way. And that's why you see now the modern classic revolution. In the old methodology could have entailed the armed forces to probably in countries like West Africa to take over, to remove this lunacy. If you look at the Chinese, look at what is happening in terms of economics. There's no liberation at all. We are still being over-reliantly, zealously dependent on this country. And who is making us to depend on countries like China? It's the same people, right? The Constitution says, look at me, design me with my acceptance. Let me participate. A few men go into the plane, get into the plane, go through those countries like China, and they come back with a package. Or this is for Kenya. We shall meet constitution or a commission to look into this. And then you see police wearing what? You see roads building, the infrastructure being brought in. Very encamped infrastructure. Look at Thika Road. Look at the bypass and the entry point on the freeways. These are death trap. You just, when you're merging into the main highway, you just come in and boom, and the car can run over you. We have civil engineer graduates.
So where is the failure?
The failure is leadership. The failure is the president. The failure is cabinet. The failure is so-called civil servant. The failure is autocracy. The failure is corruption. The failure is lunacy. And I hope Communications Authority will not take you under task because they always monitor where I am.
You know, you started by telling us that you worked with some of these people. You've worked with, for example, Raila Odinga. You've worked with those that have fought for the second liberation. And yet now you're saying that those are the ones that have failed us.
Yes, because...
So at what point did you realize that they're failing us?
It's an unfortunate situation that I worked with the likes of Odinga when we were in exile. We were there, they were in. It's like a graveyard. Those who are buried are in, sleeping. They can't wake up, they can't come out because there is a wall of silence. In which case, that was the wall of silence in Kenya because we were outside. We wanted to come in, but the regime will not allow us. So we trusted these folks. We spoke to them and we were like, what are we going to do there? We financed their trips, financed their accommodation, financed their security, and we had all legitimate hopes on them. Then they came in and they got it. What did they do with it? What can they show us? Rather than having that sympathy, I fought, I was jail. I was also in jail. I may not have been in the real jail. I was in city mortuary most of the time after Dr. Okoh's death, and that's why I have some problems with the breathing. So does it mean that we were not in jail? Jail for what? Fighting for this country, right? Then these folks come here, and then they bring in an ideology, enhancing in capitalism of the highest order. I'm not saying capitalism is bad, but if unchecked, it's very horrible. They bring in the Chinese, they have cocktails, and then they dance at the expense of people's graves. Those people are unemployed in this country. They're already buried, and these people are dancing on their grave. We cannot allow that.
You know, the struggle for what we call a second liberation, I think marks the struggle that I think not just a country like ours, but humanity must have if they wish to have their lives improved. Because I think, one, there is no perfect system, and even the good systems need a check and balance. You were in the UK, I think you'd know this.
US also.
In the US, in fact, it's just as well you are there, same. Wonderful countries, but the check and balance is always there. Now, the things you are saying bear great semblance to the truth that one sees if one lives in this country. But Prof, everything you've said is what very many people who want the same position as you say. How then do we know that, should you ascend to that seat of the presidency, that you will be different?
I think I'll be dictator and economic. The only difference is that I'm going to be a dictator on corruption. Yes, because if you look at my history and my background, it speaks volumes. That's number one.
Please explain.
And number two, if I may give an example before I come back to your question, how comes that Rwanda, which was not there when we left this country, when we went into exile, is now there with every infrastructure, every common sense?
I don't understand when you say Rwanda wasn't there.
Rwanda was not there in terms of the world because of what had happened before.
Yes.
Rwanda came in after Kenya had been independent for how many years? Though it had the so-called independence, which was coupled with coup after coup after coup, up to the time of Habyarimana. But look at what Paul Kagame has done in Rwanda. He's become an economic dictator, and he has also become a dictator on corruption. That's why he's able to drive himself to school. He's able to take his children to school. He's able to have lunch with these people. And he's able to plan the city. And that's why Rwanda has become a hub. What a shame to a country like ours, which actually borrowed money to countries like Singapore in 1966, Malaysia, and then the blueprint of Singapore was designed on the one borrowed by the first president of Singapore from Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. And look at the Kenyatta 1 administration. The NHS system in Kenya was the best. But now when we come here, what I'm trying to say in short is we lack experience. Some of these leaders have not been exposed. They have not gone through what we have gone through. They have not seen reality. They have not toed on the line. They are the suit people. They come in, go to Makerere University, go to Nairobi University, from Yala High School, and then after that they get a job, and boom, they're in Nairobi, Lavington, drinking whiskey in Cedars, big Mercedes-Benz, and living in a rental house. Then when you give this kind of power, this kind of manpower, what do you expect? Do you want to equate me to that person? So what I'm saying in short is, I've been there, and I've seen what happens. I've participated there. I've stood for elections in the UK, and I was told you're not enough. You're not ripe enough to be a member of parliament for Tottenham because you have shown us, you have checked in this list, children 2, wife blank. Tell us how you got these children, and here you say,
There's no
wife blank. I said, well, I had not yet married. Officially said, we cannot allow you. Ethics. And that's why I've got solidarity with ethics. Solidarity with morality. Not solidarity with immorality. Leaders in Kenya have solidarity with immorality. So is the church, some of the church leaders.
Prof, I hear you saying almost then that your experience then has prepared you for taking the highest seat, that the things that you have been through as a result of those freedoms that you fought for, as a result of those experiences that you had, that's a recipe then for you to be in this position, as opposed to anybody else who has not.
Not only that, I advise sitting presidents, right from the late Jerry Rawlings, who helped us to remove Kenyans from here to Ghana, who are fighting for liberation in this country. I've also been, I also advised sitting president in one of the South African countries. And that confidence African governments and opposition governments have in me. If I can advise a president of a country like Nigeria to stand this way, I can advise a president in a country like Liberia.
Just please explain that a little bit, Prof. When you say that you've advised presidents or you're advising presidents...
I do still advise.
When you say that you're advising presidents, in what capacity are you advising presidents? As their lawyer? Are you appointed as an advisor, proper formal advisor? Or are you a friend to presidents?
Well, there are those that are my friends who are my classmates, and some of them are opposition leaders like Tundu Lissu, who was my classmate at Warwick University. Those are my friends. And then when you come to issues like, before I come to your question, if you find opposition parties, opposition leadership in various African countries and the Latin American countries coming for my advice to them. It means that, and the kind of schools I went to in UK, among them School of Oriental and African Studies, which was the backbone of liberation of Africa, African neocolonialism from the West, whereby I met people and we sat with people who are now presidents of other countries. Friendship started through experiences that we were going through. And that's why when the talent came up and they realized that this guy could do something and appointed me to be the president of African Society in a school like School of Oriental African Studies, University of London, which is one of the top universities in the world, then that means that's why we were able to collaborate with people like Professor Wangari Maathai when we invited her to come to SOAS to confer to her the soul of SOAS, when we had people like Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, when we had people like Sam Muyoma of Mozambique coming in and I addressing them and them now picking me. Like the Israeli government, especially some of the ministers who were my classmates. If you come to countries, to world leaders, guru leaders like the Ravi of the art of living, and my philosophy from the Indian background, people like Narendra Modi. I mean, we have had a class of people who wanted to remove neocolonialism in terms of economic neocolonialism, like what the Chinese are doing on Kenyan by taking a few Kenyan leaders and taking them there, given the fact that you have seen what China has done wherever they have gone. They take over and they make sure they are in for good. I've foreseen this 20 years from now, Mombasa port will be under China, and that's why I want them to leave.
Back to my question. So, for example, the leader of a Southern African country that you are advising, in what capacity are you advising them?
As a friend and also as a progressive, transformative leader. Do this, let's do this.
Okay.
And it happens.
You said that you want to be a dictator.
Economic dictator.
Economic dictator.
On corruption.
An economic dictator on corruption.
Yes.
Take us through that. What do you mean by economic dictator on corruption?
Well,
what would you do?
We shall seek legislation to hang anyone who has stolen public money. China, which is one of the most corrupt countries outside China, they hang corrupt people. And that's why there's no corruption in China. If you look at Japan, if you just think or even dream that you are corrupt, you commit suicide. And that's why you see the rate of suicides in Japan, according to statistics and scientific findings, you find out that 70% of those who commit suicide are those people who suspect themselves to be corrupt, in which case they fear being arrested. That's China, they hang you. Japan, you kill yourself. And now let us now go to Europe. They jail you. But in Kenya, you go to parliament.
So what will you do with the legislation? What will you be seeking to do with the legislation?
Death penalty.
Okay.
Yes.
It exists.
We are going to suspend part of the constitution and we shall ask Kenyans to look into it and see. If somebody can come and steal your medicine, like KEMSA, and it will be a questionnaire, let 1,000 people die. What do you do with this kind of person? Take him to court, but we are lacking legislation. And if he finds himself, they find him guilty through the appeal process, what is the verdict? Put him in jail to eat our food again? Put him in jail to receive our medication again? Put him in jail to be corrupt again? Hang the bastard.
Prof, you're a lawyer.
Yes.
What is the current legal status on death penalty?
Do I care about the legal status here?
Currently.
Let me talk to you. I have so many degrees in law and I'm an academic, comparative academic, not just looking at laws of a country and boom, boom, boom. Let's look at reality. Let's look at corruption. Let's look at those stupid regulations we have here, which make people being jailed. A poor man who has been caught with one piece of marijuana being put in for 67 years, like that case in Mandera, or being fined 63 million. No, 50 years, or being fined 53 million. Really? Surely? And then as opposed to somebody who steals from you, then he goes to sleep in a hotel somewhere. There's a special room in committee, I'm told, where when, or the courts will tell, or whatever I see in courts here, an advocate asking the court that, sir, please, let's not remand him in industrial area, but we would prefer him to go to Kigiri, because in Kigiri police station they will sleep. Really? Creating class kind of. I'm telling you that the legislation we have is very punitive. Kenya has got 264-page constitution. The US has got 8. But out of 8 pages, they have 700 years of that constitutionality, of constitutionalism, as per Professor Okoh. But if you look at the amendments that have happened, there are only 14 amendments. In Kenya, how many laws are made every day by Parliament? And how do you look and regenerate those laws? Punitive. Like now they are saying, if your car stalls or you make an accident on this Chinese freeway, what is the fine? Kenya is a land of fines, punitive measures taken against its own subject, and we have to free ourselves from those punitive, stupid laws.
I want to get it very clear from you, Prof, what you're saying here is that we've tried to deal, if at that, have tried to deal with corruption over the last however many years. So what you're saying unequivocally here is that deal with the agents of corruption by ending life. Now, if you're doing that, how then do you deal with issues of human rights and things like this?
There's nothing like human rights when you steal my food and sleep with my small kids. You molest my daughter who is 8 years old and you tell me human rights. If I get you, I'll kill you. And then you can take me and hang me up. I'm talking of those people who are really stealing Kenyans. Like today I saw in the newspaper, a civil servant stealing what he has stolen, building flats in Ugunja, Kuala, and what have you. That kind of man, there's no point. There's no point. If he's found guilty, hang him in public. There's no, as a deterrent to other people. It's no point of saying ati tutakupeleka gereza uende ulale huko nini. No. Mine is zero tolerance on corruption. If Chinese are doing it.
And that's what zero tolerance means.
Yes. Okay. Then if you go to China, be careful.
So there'll be due process. There's going to be investigations.
Yes, everything will be there.
Taken to court.
Yes.
Found guilty, hanged.
Hanged, or you choose how to die, because there will also be options. You want to die by lethal injection?
Shoot me in the head.
You want to die by cutting off your head? Do you want to die by chopping off your hand first? Do you want to take poison like Socrates? Or look at the Islamic countries. Go to Somali, the great Somaliland.
Yeah.
You can leave your money there and go.
Yeah.
Because Sharia there is
serious.
I mean, you see people in Sudan with half hands. Sign of what? Corruption or stealing.
Let's take a break on this note. It's 28 minutes to 8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Professor George Wajackoyah of the Roots Party of Kenya is a presidential candidate in this year's general election. He is here with us in The Situation Room. We want to understand what he is saying. He's saying we need to think out of the box in this election. We have had the same people ready to have a change. And he says he represents that change. We'll talk about that as we take this break. How do you separate truth from lies and facts from opinion? In the late 2021, Baraza Media Lab and 23 media and media-related organizations met and they discussed this urgent issue of our time. And that's when Fumbua was born. Fumbua is a new, groundbreaking collaborative journalism project that's designed to tackle misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation ahead of the upcoming general election. To find out how Fumbua plans to enrich our democracy by fighting the scourge of fake news, join us this morning at 8 o'clock. We'll be having a guest in the studio to discuss this and more. Kenya's biggest conversation. We'll be back shortly.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to SpiceFM.
Africa is rapidly growing, and Merck Foundation is raising awareness about different social and health issues through fashion and art with purpose. Our Africa TV show on KTN Home will talk about issues that matter to you, such as diabetes awareness, ending child marriage, supporting girl education, and breaking infertility stigma, among other topics affecting the continent. Join Merck Foundation CEO Senator Dr. Rasha Kelej every Saturday at 5:30 p.m. as she talks to fashion designers, singers, and other personalities from across Africa. Only on KTN Home.
Feel the roar. KCB is bringing you the World Rally Championship on the 23rd to the 26th of June 2022. Tune in to the Spice Drive with me, Edward Quach, to find out more about it and how KCB has made it possible for you to enjoy all the action. KCB, go ahead.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Standard Group's Farm Kenya initiative is the umbrella entity for all agriculture-related channels, activities and investments. The media platforms under the Farm Kenya initiative include the Smart Harvest Weekly Pullout in the Saturday Standard, KTN Farmers TV, a 24-hour agribusiness TV station, Maisha Kilimo, a weekly agriculture show on Radio Maisha, AgriTalk on Spice FM's morning show The Situation Room, and Grind na Agribiz on Vibes Radio morning show Morning Vibes. Find us online at www.farmers.co.ke, an integrated website that creates and aggregates agri-content, hosts a digital marketplace, and wide range of agri-data. Other platforms include specialized events such as the annual Mkulima Expo, quarterly Farmers Kenya Breakfast, and dedicated social media platforms at Farm Kenya 254. Farm Kenya, working to secure your growth.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 13. We'll see highs of 24, back down to lows of 13 today. Sunny at 12 in Nakuru, highs of 24 and lows of 11. And we'll see lows of 10 in a cloudy Nyeri at 13, going to highs of 23. 22 will be high in a sunny Eldoret, currently at 11, and we'll see lows of 10. It's still raining in Mombasa at 24, highs of 29 and lows of 23. And we're looking at partly sunny conditions in Malindi at 26, go to highs of 29 and lows of 25. It's cloudy at 18 in Kisumu, highs of 28 and lows of 17, and we'll see lows of 14 in a cloudy Kakamega, currently at 15, and go to highs of 27. The sun is up in Kampala at 27, highs of 26. I beg your pardon, at 17, it'll go to highs of 26, and it's mostly cloudy at 23 in Dar es Salaam, highs of 30 and lows of 23. Temperatures dropping in Johannesburg, it's now 3 degrees. We'll see highs of 17 today, and the light rain continues in Lagos at 26. It'll go to highs of 30. 31 will be the high recorded in a clear Kinshasa, currently at 20. All right, so according to the time, we're just getting off into traffic hour. We've seen some action that started really early on Jago Road, as well as the Thika Superhighway moving up north. But Jago Road, it looks pretty messy. We're looking at in and outbound traffic heading out towards the City Stadium roundabout. And also on Uhuru Highway, that's quite crazy. Again, that roundabout between Bunyala and Haile Selassie is a clog up, at least for now. Langata Road, also really busy. We're looking at inbound traffic, bumper to bumper. Same thing on Gong Road as you get towards the roundabout, heading out towards Community. That's where you see the most of the traffic this morning. We're looking at back-to-back, bumper-to-bumper traffic on Limuru Road as well as Kiambu Road, which is really messy, going out towards Coffee Gardens this morning. And then we're looking at just past Survey on the Thika Superhighway. That also bumper-to-bumper, moving slowly this morning. We are officially in traffic hour this morning. Let's see what it looks like shortly. Where might you be stuck? Tell us what is going on in your neck of the woods. Let's talk on Spice FM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings
20 minutes
done
to
right.
8
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okoh, CT, Muga, and WTF. Wajackoyah the fifth. Professor George Wajackoyah, Roots Party of Kenya presidential candidate. Prof, you have said very heavy things as we continue this conversation. Number one, you've said you want to be a dictator, economic dictator, dictator against corruption. You've also mentioned something about suspending the constitution. Did I hear you right?
Definitely.
What's that?
Asking Kenyans to look in the constitution again. Because if you look at our constitution, it was hurriedly made very fast, not translated in all tribes. Kenyans were not given ample time. A constitution is something that grows with the population, and it takes many years. If you look at the charter, the 1948 Israeli charter, which was a constitution made, a draft constitution made while Israelis were preparing to conquer wherever they took, you find out that the day they conquered and went to the Knesset, they looked at it and they said, no, this cannot work for us. All you need to do is to start afresh and work with it. And they did away, and they have been very successful. They coded their language and their philosophy and sociology and law on what was there in the past. They looked at the Torah. They looked at what had happened, the experiences they had had in exile, from the Mosaic era to modern exile. Because if you look at the word refugee, actually emanated from, of course I teach refugee law, emanated from the Israelis. So they have progressively looked into what happened before, the academic writings, the storytelling histories of the past, to build up to where they are. So they were looking in the past to build the present, to move progressively to tomorrow. That's why it doesn't have a written constitution.
So how would you apply that?
But I'm just laying the foundation.
Okay.
You know, I'm a lawyer. Yes. So now, if you look at Canada, for example, Canada has two segments. There is the French-speaking and the Commonwealth-speaking. So them writing a constitution became a problem. So they said, you know what, let us progress on day-to-day activity with what is there. That's where Canada does not have a written constitution. So is New Zealand. Now go to the mother empire, Britain. It works on prerogative conventions, where Her Majesty empowers her ministers to apply ethics of convention. Look at what the situation is. Design it. Let the people talk about it in town hall meetings. And if that is okay, then we go, let the judges look at it administratively in case there is any kind of misdemeanor in terms of people not accepting what is being laid down. So people live in harmony. There is the Race Relations Act, which harmonizes relationships between other ethnic minorities and what have you, which is not based on written conventions. But when you come to Kenya, they had to write something for us because we were primitive. And what they wrote for us was not doable in Britain. Double standards come in. And now with the yoke of Kenyans coming in to study, of course, there was that agitation. Let me go to university. Going to university was a symbol of freedom, not academic excellence. When you got somebody from Goto Simbo, somewhere in South in Siaya, coming to university, you are like a king. If we went back in holidays, we were like so. We were designed from that methodology. Given the fact that people like the late Arguing Skodek, who was the first African lawyer south of Sahara, when he became first African barrister, and we went to the same inn, I'm glad to say that and to brag a little bit of that. When he came back and he was advising these people, let us not write this thing and go in. We have so many ethnically. Let's look at everything and go the African way. They refuse. They say, no, what is African is repugnant. It was made repugnant by colonialist governors. Therefore, we go with this. So we took that approach of the written constitution, which has put a lot of burdens on Kenyans today. And if you look at how the constitution came up, the draft constitution, what have you, we had the so-called experts. Who are they? Learned people. Oxford, Cambridge, Makerere. Anybody who went to Gunja Rukwala Chief Center was not ripe enough
to be an expert.
To be an expert. Look, let's move now to Indian constitution, which is the best in the whole world, whereby a teetotaler can go in and become a prime minister. I'm talking of Narendra Modi, who used to sell tea on the streets. Now, can somebody like that become a president in this country if he has not gone to Ivy League schools? No. Now, if you look at the framework of that constitution, you get these people who went out, they took tea, came back, and then they came and said that people were supposed to participate. For how long was that participation? That's where we are coming in. That's why I'm telling Kenyans, look, let's go back to the drawing table. Let's have enough time, because Kenya is not going anywhere. We shall go somewhere, but Kenya is going to remain. Look at the sustainable development of our futuristic minds and look at it and say, well, if this is the case, bang used to be smoked before colonials came as a medicinal component of traditional healing. Changa used to be taken on ceremonies. A white man comes in and outlaws this, and it makes it repugnant. because it's not conducive to a white man's health. But he comes in with Philip Morris, grows you tobacco, or you grow tobacco, and you go on. So I want Kenyans to look into this and say, well, is this what you want? How did you achieve it? And it shall give them time. This is Kenya. Article 1 of the so-called constitution speaks of we the people in the preamble. But does it really function that way? So we are going to really look into it and then ask Kenyans, what do you want? Take what you want? Or you want to maintain the same judiciary where the chicken gate versus IEBC case has been there forever, where the counterparts were jailed in Britain and they have served their sentence, and here it's this way? How do you remove corruption from the judiciary? What do you want us to do? Do you want to go the jury system where you can take over yourself and get into domestic issues and resolve them at local level, or do you want to go to court to find a young boy from the university who just completed and is taking him, Mr. Muga, before him, asking him about the Luo heritage? Or do you want to go to the elders at home to find out what you can do if the matter is oriented to the traditional aspect?
Professor, I need help here. Whenever I hear the word suspension with reference to the Constitution, what comes to my mind is martial law. But from what you're saying suspending the Constitution means you're telling Kenyans, pause, you have a Constitution, but let's rethink this whole process of how we ought to go about our business. So if we suspend it, then what do we have?
We shall have what we have in terms of what has been there. We are talking of the Constitution, not the legislation, so that we can have the mother Constitution looked into, some sections, not all of it.
Not all.
Then when it comes now to the practicality or the how do we, I just forgot that word. When it comes to the programs that have been set in terms of legislation, in terms of parliamentary debates, they will have to continue, as Kenyans also continue to look into what is. There's nothing impossible.
So,
you remember, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. You remember the swearing in of Raila Odinga? Was it constitutional or unconstitutional?
You ask me if it was constitutional or unconstitutional?
Yes.
I have absolutely no idea.
Now, here we go. Yes, it was because of the preamble. We the people. If you entrust me with powers, you have given me the authority, then I will come back to you and say, you have given me the authority, because the preamble is above the Constitution. It's the togetherness. We, the people of Kenya, do hereby. You know, a lot of people don't read the Constitution the way some of us read it.
You studied. You are equipped with the means to not just read, but to understand
to understand comparatively from other constitutionals internationally.
Yes.
So the Constitution is not there. What is there is the preamble, which supersedes the Constitution. The basic tenet of the framework says, we the people. That's why Miguna, my fellow friend and client, came in and said, you know what, we can swear in Raila Odinga because of the preamble. Even if it was challenged in court, it would not have gone anywhere. Now, if you look at the legislation that empowers the Constitution, that's a different thing. So we are going to go ahead with the legislation for a short time. Kenya is not in a hurry. So that we apply the preamble. And if you give me mandate through the preamble, the Constitution comes where? Second. So
something that I want to ask, and to move away from legal matters, because much as I get educated by it, if someone wants to be the president of Kenya, what would you consider to be the priority? You've mentioned the Constitution, yes. I'm asking the question with reference to education. It's a list of things. What would you do with the education sector? What would you do with the health sector?
Good question. Education in this country has been killed by bureaucracy, by the academic bureaucracy. They have copied systems that cannot work with us. They have not gone to practical areas, countries like Japan or South Korea, which have got informal education. If I look at the education policies in the UK or European Union, and then I look at the United States educational policies, education in the US is not a privilege. It's not within the Constitution. It's not compulsory. It's like a driver's license. Yeah, it is actually a privilege, not a constitutional issue where parents design the kind of education their children should have, the kind of religion their children should have until they become mature. Therefore, in the US, a parent designs whether to teach his or her children from home or take them to a different set of schools in accordance to what the parents want. Therefore, it is not a privilege. Now, if you go to the UK, the education system is partnered between the local authorities, because money is given to them, and other stakeholders, including parents, including doctors, psychiatrists, education officers, and also the authorities. So it's an issue which is actually pegged on partnership. But education in Kenya is one side. The ministry comes and says it is this way. Parents are not asked whether madrasa education is good for the children, what have you. Parents are not asked whether they would actually bring in their input. As now compared to Nigeria, in Nigeria it's a different issue. Education is actually left to the chieftaincy as well as the tribe. If you go to the Yorubas, if you get an Yoruba academic from Harvard who has raised his children in America, there's a period where he cuts off that educational cycle and brings his children back to Nigeria to study Yoruba language and Yoruba education and Yoruba manners, so that when they go back to the US, they have that Yoruba identity. But in Kenya today, you can go, like my sister was speaking very nice, and I'm here to ask her privately before I leave, because she speaks like my daughter. Of course, my children are born and raised in UK. You get a parent or a person like you, Mr. Muga. You came in, you went to school, you look nice, you wear a suit, marashi iko namna hiyo, Mercedes ndio hiyo, naenda Sidas kila siku. Watoto wako usubuhi ambao wamezaliwa Nairobi, wanabebwa usubuhi, wanaimbiwa haleluya, wanawekwa kwa gari, wanapewa Cerelac kama watu wengine tunajua, anawekwa kwa basi, anapelekwa shule, huko anaimbiwa. A child like that one is a distraction. It's a terrible kind of hybrid we are breeding for this society, because yeye akigrow up, his thinking will be this way. So what I'm trying to say is parents should be involved in the upgrade and bringing of their children in terms of education.
Don't parents have the freedom to bring up their children the way they like?
But if you bring us a mannerless child, if you die and the mother becomes a widow, and then there's those freebies the kids have been getting, and you take them back to Gunja, you see what happened to them?
Yes, I see what happens to them. But you see, the very rights that you're speaking of, the freedoms that you want people to express in relooking at the Constitution,
right?
It's the same freedom that parents will have. Now, whether it is in choosing schools, whether it is in determining how they ought to teach, because homeschooling exists in Kenya. The choices that you speak of, parents have. You are right in that they're limited. But you can either take your children to a private school.
I'm not opposed to that, but I'm talking of the moral aspect part of it.
I understand perfectly. I'm talking about the choices that people have, because there is no better way of expressing the freedoms that you say you enjoy unless you can actually express it through the choices that you make.
Why can't we do it the Japanese way, whereby if it comes to secular schools, kids are going to study about robots, robotic studies. Doesn't matter whether your father is the king of this country or the queen of Maryland. They study the same thing uniformly under the government, kind of what have you, instead of one school having higher kind of epistemology in terms of the infrastructure than the other school. There, I will also retract that word from me and say it in the following way. If you have a government that has got money after we sell what you are going to sell, which you are going to ask me questions, I know, then we shall have enough money to put in infrastructure that will be conducive to the national policy of the government.
Okay, so maybe I can just jump in there and say then that you have plans to sell things, then should you be the president of the country, Professor. And then I guess that leads to the structure of what kind of government then you want to put in place. One of the things that you've talked about then is corruption. There's going to be a zero policy against corruption. That's for sure. That's clear. But in terms of the structure of government and how you want you would see that it would be necessary to run the country by. How would that be? How then would you then spur the economy? How then would you put up these pillars for the very important things, education, health, infrastructure development, etc., etc.? What's your plan?
We are going to regional governments. Regional governments. we are going to ask Kenyans whether they want to go back to where Mzee Kenyatta left them.
Provinces.
We had provinces, and it's our view that we are going to have those provinces into states. In that, if you have Rift Valley State with its capital in Nakuru, with its parliament in Nakuru, then we shall have counties within the state. Now, what will happen, and I will give you that as an example, what will happen in Nakuru is the Nakuru parliament will decide on the economic development of the Rift Valley State with either chief minister, or if they want to have a governor, in that case, that's so it be. Now, it is from that we shall look into the following. From the county level, we shall look at the county production. Narok produces wheat, meat, and tourism, among other things. Now, if Narok's revenue oversees any other county revenue in Nakuru, then the county government of Narok will work in conjunction with the state parliament in Nakuru to find out on appropriation of finances, since they are produced more, which means that the money produced in the county given to the county will be measured on their production, and they can use that money to put in infrastructure in Narok. And what I mean by that is we are likely to devolve all sectors of development in terms of, like, if you have health system, education system, they'll be devolved from county to state level. And then with the security operators, we can have state police and then county police. Now, if we move away from that system and we come to the federal government, the role of the federal government will be to look into instrumentalities. What I mean by instrumentalities is, if the federal state or federal highway coming from Mombasa and passing through other states to Uganda, what have you, what will be the role of the federal government? We shall look at the money appropriated, given to the federal government through vote by the state government to the federal government, which will be kept at a certain percentage, which will be used to maintain instrumentalities of commerce around the country. We are also suggesting that we shall move administrative city from Nairobi to have Isiolo as the new capital of this country. We have looked at Dodoma in Tanzania, how it has worked. We have looked at Abuja, where I used to advise the former president, Goodluck Jonathan, how things have worked there. So we can devolve municipalities in terms of development by making people now, by taking discussions to the people's door so that they can discuss from that grassroots, as opposed to the system here. Right now they are talking of devolution, but we still having the central government that is calling the shots.
Everything is Nairobi.
Yes.
As we conclude the conversation, Prof, 1 hour is a short time when you have such an interesting conversation. Let's talk about this marijuana business.
Yes.
You're saying, let's look at marijuana commercially. Are you also saying, let's legalize smoking of bang in the country?
Not at all. And even if you were to legalize smoking, my deputy has got the mathematics. We have two kinds of marijuana. And the one for smoking, they will make sure they remove the impurities so that they can sell it for what have you. But let me come back to that question, which is very important. The world has gone very fast, and I know that religious leaders, where they're looking at me. And maybe last night they prayed for me to rot in hell, especially with the bishop of wherever Nyeri came in to stupidly not reading into my manifesto, which shows you that some of these church leaders are very, very ignorant in terms of looking at things, analyzing before they open their big mouths. Now, when it comes to marijuana, if you look at 1 gram of marijuana and you look at the countries that have legalized on stock exchange, you'll find out that 1 gram of marijuana is about $78. 1 sack of marijuana is $302 million US. Now, if we grow a place like, let me say, our pilot projects, places like Bunyore or Nyamira, or even in the mountain, it doesn't take us long to pay off the 10 trillion debt that we have. If you have 600 bags of marijuana, and if each bag is if 50 bags, 50 kgs of marijuana is $3.2 million US, according to the stock exchange market in New York as we speak today, then what will be wrong for us to pay off the debt at one go, or within 1 year or 2 years, and then make Kenyans progress in terms of economic development, rather than borrowing $2 billion every day as the president has accepted, or growing things that are not going to matter in terms of production. Look at a sack of maize, it's about 6,000, sack of beans and what have you. But if we have this, then the issues of corruption will be ending because everyone will have money in his pocket.
So it's about commercial.
It's commercialized. We
Not
are
for
not
smoking, not for
Yeah, and the church has
recreation.
taken me very wrong because they know that probably they came to liberalize the Kenyan minds. And I'm telling them that they have also to be put on a pedestal. They get free money, free profit. They own massive acreage of land in the country, yet they cannot plan for poor people to have some kind of economic violence. So that's where we are.
Prof, we thank you very much for joining us this morning in Kenya's Biggest Conversation. I've got to ask you 2 questions before we leave.
Yes, sir.
Explain your headgear, please.
Yes, a lot of people think that I'm mad, and I think mad people do things that are a bit different from those who wear suits and ties and walk and dine and what have you. I'm glad none of you is wearing that, but it's okay. I wear them when I go to court only. This is a form of resistance. A durag, if you trace its history, you will find out that when African Americans, and my wife is an African American, she's the one who told me this, when they were being taken on the ships, those who were killed were thrown in water. But before they were thrown in water, their clothes were torn and then tied on the head, so that when they reached their final destination, they could count how many died.
It would be identified.
Yes, identified. And then when African Americans now started entering games, the first basketball team that they had, they were boycotted by the whites. So as a reminder of their past, they tore their vests and put on the durag on the head as a means of resistance. It was not until they were accepted that this became a symbol of resistance. This is a symbol of resistance on corruption. And until corruption is over, I will not remove it.
Someone says that you are very good at salsa.
Yes, I'm a musician, and I'm also an entertainment lawyer. I have a media house in Rochester, in New York, and part of my clients are Hollywood stars. In Africa, I have people like Kofi Olomide. And I also dance. I'm 62 years. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't eat meat. I don't eat fish.
You don't smoke bang?
I've never smoked. So that means I don't smoke bang. I'll only smoke maybe when we are sworn in to purify. But I am, and having been a police officer, I mean, having been a chokora, a grave digger, jack of all trades, I dance, and I'm also a dance instructor in salsa. I just came from Havana, Cuba, and where I went as a judge. And then I've also been in Montenegro, in Serbia.
Wow.
I've also been in South America, and mostly that's why I came in touch with people like Sub-Commander Marcos, the rebels that were fighting for their land rights in Mexico.
Okay. Thank you very much, Prof, for joining us today. Professor George Wajackoyah is a presidential candidate. He is running in the Roots Party of Kenya as the vehicle. Who's your running mate again, for people who may not know?
There she is, a young lady, 35 years old, no scandals, never been involved with pastors or let me say, Catholic fathers. She's married, the husband is also there. Her name is Justina Wangoi Wamai, a very, very young lady, very vibrant. She's better than me. In fact, I may only go in for one term. And if anything, I will relinquish to her. If Kenyans want, that's the next president.
Okay. Your final word as you speak to the country this morning, bearing in mind the latest figures that we've seen from the IEBC, less than 40% of the voters are going to be between ages of 18 and 35.
I'm just telling Kenyans of all ages to wake up from this colonial mentality. They should look at the future of their children, because Kenya is in debt. And those pregnant mothers who are yet to give birth, they will give birth to children who will already be indebted to the debts in wherever. If Kenyans want to be free, this is the only chance they have. And I'm also telling people from Western Province and Nyanza, let them not look at tribalism. Roots Party has killed the language of tribalism once and for all. If you look at the songs that are being sung about Roots Party, if you look at the movement that has come in, we are a movement which is not going to be stoppable. Of course, the big parties have tried to bribe me, and let me tell them very clearly, I am going up to the ballot. Those who are sending emissaries to me, especially those MPs who came to see me, and I'm not going to mention them, shame on them. Shame on those MPs from Kenya Kwanza. Shame from those elders from wherever it is. What is that? Azimio. I am not going. And Raila and Ruto, don't send me people. I will not accept. If you want, call me directly. Raila, you know me. I've lived with you. Ruto, you know me. Call me directly, and I will talk to you. Don't send me stupid people. I will not accept. Thank you.
Kenya's Biggest Conversation, 4 minutes after 8.
like listening to you guys. You're the default radio station in my car in the morning. Even the children listen to you guys.
I agree Parliament has failed this country. And I will say it again. We have not done what we should have done.
We know in this country, the Kenya prison sector is one of the most underfunded sector.
The way it is being done and the way we're calling it Huduma Namba the Msema Kweli is because all records will be there. You know, there are people who are now billionaires with no history as to how they got all these assets.
Yes. Anything that the president does that is not in accord with the constitution is an illegal act. You know, he shouldn't be doing it and should be sitting here and trying to sort of guise it up.
I totally believe live transmission of results and allowing Kenyans to be able to view all these results. I believe that it will be impossible to steal elections.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
At a few minutes after 8 o'clock, we're looking at bumper-to-bumper in and outbound traffic on Kiambu Road today. It doesn't look pretty at all. I don't know how many lanes we are at right now, but it looks pretty messy as you're trying to get towards that Pangani underpass just past Muthaiga Square. Looking a little bit better on the Thika Superhighway. We have traffic just past Utali Drift this morning. We're also looking at that Nairobi Expressway coming out of Westland. Still really slow as folks are trying to exit the expressway. So that slowed down stuff this morning. Looking into Kileleshwa out towards James Gishuru, out onto Wayaki Way. That traffic still continues. Don't forget, you can use the Red Hill Link Road to get out of the traffic that is. Let's talk, guys, on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up.
It is 7 minutes after 8. A very good morning to you and welcome to the third hour of
Room,
Kenya's
the only way to start your...
Yes, we're here with presidential candidate, Professor George Wajackoyah, and he has said what he has said. As we get into the next hour, CT, the day's proverb.
Yes. Amani haipatikani ila kwa ncha ya upanga.
Amani haipatikani ila kwa ncha ya upanga.
Peace comes...
Do you know what ncha is?
Ncha is the tip of the sword. Got it?
Got it.
You're sharp.
Touché.
Yes.
City?
Peace comes not saved by the point of the sword.
Amani haiji ila kwa ncha ya upanga. So it's when the tip, touching the tip, that's when now peace comes.
As of now, indications of things to come.
Yes.
Got it.
Or as a threat.
Yes.
As a threat. If you joke, I could drive it deeper. And that's where the problem comes in.
And that's where peace.
So let's make peace. Yes. Peace be upon you. So we've been having a conversation about, say again, misinformation, disinformation, malinformation.
Yes.
What is malinformation?
Well, if I think of mal and what it means in another language, it means bad, right? So bad or wrong information is what malinformation is. Disinformation is, I don't even know now. I want to use them interchangeably, but I guess you can't really at all times, right? Mis and dis, where are we?
Misinformation, disinformation.
Malinformation.
One is deliberate, right? Disinformation is deliberate. misinformation could be
a mistake.
Could be a mistake.
Unintended.
Unintended,
for example.
right? And you get the information spread in the wrong way. And then you said malinformation is when you have insufficient information.
Oh no, it's just that your intel is bad. Your information is bad.
You have bad information.
Yes.
It's like malnutrition.
Bad nutrition.
Yeah, bad nutrition.
Mm.
Okay. Let's bring in somebody who understands these terms much better than we do. Alphonse Yundu is the Kenya editor for Africa Check. Alphonse, good morning.
Good morning, Latiff.
Good to have you in the show. We've had you on the show, but have you been here?
I've been in this studio, I think 3 times.
Yes.
Where's your memory?
Come on.
Even I remember.
It's malinformed.
Malmemorized. How you doing, Alphonse?
Very, very fine. Very fine. Thank you very much.
So let's just start off with those. Miss, this.
You and do are right on the first 2.
Mm-hmm.
So disinformation, deliberate.
Mm-hmm.
Misinformation. When you put out information with deliberate intent to mislead, that is disinformation. Misinformation is when you ignorantly share information because you do not know that you do not know what is correct. And malinformation now, that is where we have a problem. That's where I'm marking you guys wrong. That's malinformation is when correct information, like authentic information, is taken and put out in a different context. So here we could talk about things like leaks. When somebody takes nudes and leaks them out, or they take official government documents and put them out in a different context. So
in a different context.
So when they put it out, it was not intended. Like classified content is not intended for public consumption. So when it hits the public, it's likely to be misinterpreted. It's likely to be to misinform. Let me put it that way.
So Julian Assange. That is malinformation.
That is malinformation.
But the original information is solid.
It's solid. It's authentic.
Okay.
Yes, but it's just going out in a different way.
It wasn't meant to come out.
Yes. If you remember in 2017, election-related malinformation, in 2017 there was this leak that was given to NASA. And NASA were reading a press conference about KDF planning to rig elections, if you remember. And
it was a leak.
It was a leak of authentic information. So that's the kind of thing that was leaked to NASA. And when NASA was interpreting it, it was in a very it was looking at it as rigging. Whereas when you speak to the people who were involved in creating the content, it was an internal document for their own management, yes, of the elections.
So, for example, if we see now presidential candidate William Ruto coming out to say about 1 million voters have disappeared from the register and we don't know where they've gone to. So, and then the IEBC chairperson comes and says, yeah, well, there's something we're dealing with. He hasn't said it's 1 million, but he says there's something we're dealing with and we are also investigating some people. Would you say that probably that is the Ruto campaign having access to information, but then bringing it out and using it in another way that may not have been what was in the official domain?
So for this one, we will look at the facts as per the IEBC. So we will not, because what we try to do is just to focus on the claim that we have. If you look at what the IEBC said, they were looking at the audit from KPMG. And that audit showed how many voters had died, how many were double registration, how many were, there were so many categories. If you put them together, it was coming to about 1 million votes, 1 million voters that were problematic, if I could call it that. So for politicians, and politicians always want to recruit and convert supporters. So however they present the information, they will use the facts, they will to push a misleading narrative often. So that now here you're not having a debate about what exactly did the IEBC say or what did the IEBC find out, what did the audit reveal. So you end up with that conversation where we do not know what the facts are, because the IEBC is telling you, okay, these are the facts around the audit, but the politician is saying those are our votes, that
So
this is the language.
Is that malinformation or not?
It's not malinformation.
Is it disinformation?
It's not. It could be misinformation, because he's not. He has his information. The IEBC has the content. Yes, but we cannot ascribe intent on Ruto. I cannot do that.
And what about when the information you have, because look, whether it's opinionated, it's still information. So what about the information you have that you then pass on to the next person is then influenced by opinion? And I say that because here you are saying, because you are in a particular position, that you feel as though there are those who are maybe in opposition to you, then maybe putting things out there. That's information you have because of how you feel. How do you categorize that? Because then we find that then there would be requisite action because of this kind of information that you have.
Yes. So I would call, like, I would just categorize that as an informed opinion.
Okay.
Because that's it's something, you know, like if I go to a Dr. City here and I say, City, I'm feeling, I have a fever, I'm feeling fatigued, and I have been coughing the whole night.
Oh, that one is easy to diagnose.
Yes.
It means you're broke.
So yeah. So he will say something like that.
Yes.
Now, this is CT. He's probably not a medical doctor.
Yes.
But a medical doctor would tell me I either have flu or I have COVID.
Right.
Now, they're making an informed opinion based on the facts that I have given them. But before they prove or establish that I have COVID or whatever, then they would now tell me to go and take a test. And that's what they will be testing. So from that point on, they're using the information they have, prior knowledge about something they know. And then they are putting it out and saying, okay, from my understanding, from my knowledge, from my years of experience, I think this is it, or I feel this is it. I'm not sure if I'm...
Sure, but let me give
Yes.
you a direct example, because then is that a situation that could lead to then disinformation? And because you say because of a historic event, for example, we know that previously, during the campaign season or during elections or whatever, stones were thrown. That's something that happens as a result of, you know, dissatisfaction with a particular result, right? Unfortunately, it has been attributed to certain people over time. On Sunday, we saw an event whereby a particular rally was not allowed to happen because of 1, 2, 3. Yesterday, we then heard someone else say there were raining stones in Jacaranda, right? Now, we don't know if the stones were raining, but it would be very easy for anybody who was listening to pick up on that and say, well, look, it's happened before because people have thrown stones. So people are now passing out this information and saying this could not happen because stones were raining. May not necessarily be true, but based on a historic event, somebody's taking that information, adding their opinion, and passing out this particular information. What scenario do we have there?
Wow, I would put it under the broader term propaganda. So propaganda, it's strictly, you can't categorize it as this, but it has elements of all those. So people are taking like little factoids, like the rally that you've mentioned, and building a narrative, often misleading narrative, that then they put out. So, for example, stones were thrown. Stones have been thrown before in a particular rally or in a particular region. Now, if they are telling that story, it is an easier story, or it's an easier sell to say that, oh, it is because of this person that these stones get thrown. And they weave very little factoids in a manner that it tells a very misleading story. Now, for us as fact checkers at Africa Check and fact checkers at Fumbua, it becomes really hard to like debunk a whole misleading narrative, because somebody will say, okay, you guys say you check facts.
Right.
Okay, the facts that we have put on the table is stones were thrown. The facts that we have put on the table is that they were thrown in this rally.
Yes.
The facts that we have put on the table is that every time stones are thrown, X and Y are involved.
Yes.
So when you go that route, it becomes very difficult to tell that person this narrative is misleading. But for them, they know why they are putting that information, how people lie with statistics. So they take like a number, give a story, the conclusion is misleading, but their basis is factual.
Sure.
So you end up with the very polluted and sometimes polarized,
dangerous even.
Dangerous even information environment during elections. Yes.
Isn't that the nature of the game, though? I mean, this is politics. You want to create a narrative that appeals to your base and also that recruits new members to that core. So you are going to play with information left, right, and center just to drive your agenda. That's the game, isn't it?
Yes, that's the game, and it's an old game. The only way where we are with the growth of social media and digital media in Kenya, we have, if you talk to politicians and their digital media teams, what they will tell you is that they do three things. The first thing they use social media for is that they do something we call social listening. So in social listening, what they are doing is they are monitoring conversations online and figuring out how they can input their message in those conversations. Sometimes they do what we call astroturfing, where they create fake conversations online. They manufacture conversations, they manufacture discussions, and they push this online. You might have seen them like this morning on the trending topics on Twitter, where they do what we call trend jacking. They they rig the Twitter algorithm in a way so that things that are not authentically trending come on top. The second thing they do is in the conversion and recruitment. So they are putting out WhatsApp groups. They are creating WhatsApp groups, they are creating Facebook groups, they are creating groups on lists on Twitter, which they then put out information. They create broadcasts on WhatsApp where they send out the same kind of information to people, and these people circulate. The last thing is in the messaging. They know social media is out there. A lot of people are on it. According to the census said about 9.9 million Kenyans have access to the internet. Now, when you're looking at that kind of number, it's and about 50% of those are under 35. So you're looking at that kind of number, and you're saying politicians are looking at a very fertile voter hunting ground. So what will they do? These guys, they know, okay, what can we do here? We are going to put false information on this ground. We are going to do that so that we recruit guys to vote for us. So it's just the nature of the game, and that is the point where, as fact checkers, we understand what the platforms are doing, we understand how the platforms operate, and so we come in with interventions where we're saying, okay, this is the nature of the game, this is the political season, this is what they are going to do, how can we stop them from doing this? Even if they do, and we cannot stop them, how do we reduce the circulation of that kind of false content? So we intervene through fact-checking, we intervene through media literacy clinics where we are training people with using open source intelligence tools, where you can fact-check for yourself. If somebody sends a picture with a very big crowd in a very small space, you can actually do a crowd estimation using open source intelligence tools. So those are the kinds of conversations that we are having in the spaces that we are, and using the Fumbua Collaborative Journalism Project, where we have influencers, we have journalists in the mainstream media, we have editors, we have a whole group of people who are putting out this message that, hey guys, there's false information, but it needs to be checked, and this is how you do it.
Alphonse, how do you race against time? Because unfortunately, with this technology, this is something that can happen now, and in 3 minutes, it's everywhere. How do you deal with that? Whether you have a whole team of people, and unfortunately, the element of damage has already been done. That by the time you're doing something about it, it's already found its nesting ground. How do you then deal with that? How do you then deal with the time issue?
Okay, the people who create these merchants of false information, they know they will be found out.
Yeah.
What they are counting on is that by the time we find out, they would have done that damage.
Yes.
And what now we realize is that because they know they'll be found out, we say that ukweli unadumu. So the truth endures. So you put out your fake information, we will put out the facts. And we have these partnerships with platforms, for example, with Facebook. So it's a very fertile playground where a lot of misinformation happens, and it has the largest numbers of users in Kenya, Facebook and WhatsApp. So if they put out information and we rate it on Facebook as false or as missing context or as misleading, everyone who saw that bit of misinformation is alerted that what you saw was false, and here it's something that you can read. We are counting on people to use their common sense to read, to enjoy the facts. And unfortunately, as the great Obama said, facts sometimes do not win elections, emotions do. So you have to present people with the facts, but present them with an emotional connection where they look at the facts and they are like, okay, we understand why this is important.
How, Alphonse, please give us an example of how you would prevent the facts then with that emotive angle to get people to think, okay, maybe the thing that I heard the first time is not necessarily the truth.
Okay, there is a sophistication. You know, right now we are reeling from the ghosts of Cambridge Analytica. Now I'll give you an example from what we saw the past 2 weeks. So Chebukati calls a press conference. He has a press conference about something else at the Bomas. As soon as the press conference ends, a screenshot emerges, and the chyron, the lower third at the bottom, says Sakaja hajaitimu, hana degree. And we are looking at that, we start debunking that. By the time we are done debunking that screenshot, that it's not an authentic broadcast from Citizen TV, we are hit with a press release that Safaricom has, we are hit with the press release now from University of Nairobi. Like that Sakaja was not their student, that the degree is inauthentic. We are checking that. We are hit with a letter from DCI to the University of Nairobi that the degree is fake. So what you're getting all this avalanche. Now, when you sit back and you say, okay, what are these people trying to do?
Yeah,
what's all this? What's all this? They are looking at the qualifications of a person. Does he have a degree or not? Is it something easy to prove? We thought it was easy to prove whether you have a degree or not. Unfortunately, it's something that we realize you have to go to court. Even the commission doesn't know. Even the commission does not know. And we do not have the capacity to like authenticate whether somebody went to school or not. So that is the kind of environment.
Sorry, you can't authenticate if someone went to school or not?
Well, what we have seen.
From what we have seen.
From what we've been treated to.
Yes.
It is not.
Nobody really knows.
It's
and
not
nobody can prove
straightforward.
it otherwise.
So is that
anyway? Let's go back to to what was happening in those 2 weeks.
So we're going to this example. So you've been hit by all that. Now you sit back and you say, okay, the conversation that is important here is to let people know that for you to have a degree, this is the procedures. The conversation that is important to know is that there's a university. This person attended this university and this university. Do the universities confirm? And if the universities confirm, who else can corroborate what the universities confirm? And that is how, now with that example, we end up with this cloud of uncertainty. And that is the exact reason why these people were putting out that misinformation. They want to sow doubt in the public to an extent that you do not know what is true and what is not.
So it's a proper game.
It's a proper game.
It's not a trisex.
No.
It's actually a strategy being deployed.
Yes.
And it had been properly timed, and we knew this is when we're going to start it, and this is how we're going to follow it through.
Yes.
And by the time the fact checkers such as Alphonse Shiundu are starting to think of how to counter us, we're already unleashing more and more information. By the time Alphonse Shiundu comes up with this information, somebody has actually even gone to the IEBC itself to protest. So there's some authenticity here. I mean, there are people who have gone to the IEBC to contest the nomination of this particular candidate.
And it's not just with this degree. I was to give you
with this particular example, right?
With this particular example, the sophistication is also in the Safaricom thing. If you remember, Gachagua has an interview like this one with a radio station for 2 hours. A clip which is 11 seconds long emerges, and it says he's going to kill Safaricom. He speaks in Kikuyu. The clip is translated in English. Latiff speaks Kikuyu. He would know that the translation was misleading. Yeah? It goes out. We fact check. We say the translation is misleading. This is the context. And we even play the longer clip where we point people to the longer clip where even the interviewer, the original interviewer, saw that and asked a follow-up question on what exactly do you mean by this? We finished the fact checking. We're hit with a press release from Safaricom. We look at the press release. The press release is condemning Gachagua. It's criticizing him for putting out those statements. We check the press release. We find it is fake. As soon as we put out the press release, it's fake. The denunciation from Safaricom that the press release is fake is also termed as fake. Now you end up in a situation where we have to educate people that sometimes you're going to see all these things that appear coordinated. You would depend on us as fact checkers to tell you guys, this is the facts around this issue. You'll depend on journalists to reveal the facts around the issue. But what they will do, they will give you the facts, but it will not stop the people who are putting out this false information from continuing the weaving of misleading narratives. It will not. They will do because this is what they are paid to do. This is what they are pursuing power. So if they are going to do political smearing, they are going to do it. If they are going to do the rigging of algorithms, pollution of the information environment, they are going to do it. So what do you do as an ordinary citizen, as a voter, as a registered voter? It's just to be smart online. There are things that you can do. You see a front page of the Standard, for example, that says something, or a front page of the Nation, or a front page of the Star that says something. Just go to the Standard website, look at the e-paper. Is that the correct front page of that day? Look at the socials of this. Is that the correct front page? Because the front pages will come, audio notes will come, fabricated group chats of senior people will be created. These are things that we have seen over the last 6 months, and they are intensifying as we get into the election period. Indeed. So the job is just to tell guys, be smart online, be very vigilant.
It's a difficult job. You're not even talking about consuming information. You're talking about now how to start understanding information. Let's take a break. It's 27 minutes to 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Alphonse Chiundu is the Kenya editor at Africa Check. Africa Check is one of the organizations that have come together to form Fumbua, and Alphonse is also the vice chair of the Fumbua board.
Yes.
Big man here. We are talking about misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, especially during this time when the campaigns are at fever pitch. How do you tell what's right, what's wrong? Kenya's biggest conversation returns shortly. It's a month of Father's Day.
It is. It's Father's Month, all of June at Sarit Your City, making it really fun for you to take the man in your life, being your dad this time, to continue enjoying Father's Day throughout the whole month. So think about it. From the 1st, that started on the 1st, all the way to the 30th, a whole month of discounts and activities. This June, it gets extra special offers and discounts from various stores, medical camps, fitness challenges by Smash Fit Gym, art exhibitions by Sana Arts Exhibition, superbike displays, and top DJs at the Rooftop Garden. There's more. Enjoy great movies and shopping vouchers from Dairyland, and everything that you can do for your dad. Stay tuned to find out more information about how you can enjoy Sarit Your City with your dad this month.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Wait. Have you seen the message I've sent you? I always knew they can never be trusted, these guys.
Okay, I've seen it, but where did you get that information from?
Someone forwarded me the message and they say they got it from a very reliable source. I can never lie to you.
Okay, but what are these sources?
Sasa now you want to interrogate me and I'm just forwarding as received. Wey, majameneni, don't shoot the messenger. Me, I'm telling you.
How do you separate the truth from the lies and facts from opinion? The election season is a period where violence, votes, and many other incidents can be influenced or triggered by a news item. When was the last time you questioned the validity of the news you saw on social media, WhatsApp, tabloids, or blogs? Where do you go to fact-check what you see or hear? Fumbua is a groundbreaking collaborative journalism project designed to tackle misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation ahead of the Kenyan elections in 2022. For more information and updates, follow Fumbua Kenya on Facebook, at Fumbua KE on Twitter, or fumbua.ke on Instagram.
Are you looking for employment and are tired of sending job applications without any response? Gone with no response? Tarmacking is now a thing of the past thanks to Skiza. Dial star 811 star 1 star 21 hash and subscribe to a ringback tune that reflects your qualifications only for 1.5 bob a day. And your callers will know your credentials and send you opportunities they come across. Set the tone with Skiza.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
The University of Nairobi, the leading university in Eastern Central Africa, invites its alumni, well-wishers, and partners to the auspicious launch dinner of the UON Foundation on Thursday, 30th June from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at the Chancellor's Court, Graduation Square. The foundation will support the university in fulfilling its mission of teaching and learning.
We're still looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. We'll see highs of 24, back down to lows of 13 today. It's 14 and sunny in Nakuru, highs of 24 and lows of 13. 10 degrees will be the low in Nyeri, where it's sunny at 16. It'll go to highs of 23, and 22 will be the high in Eldoret, where it's sunny at 14, coming down to lows of 12. Light rain continues in Mombasa this morning at 25. We'll see highs of 29 and lows of 23. Malindi, raining as well at 25, highs of 29 and lows of 25. We're looking at partly sunny conditions at 20. In Kisumu, highs of 28 and lows of 18, while in Kakamega it's partly sunny at 18, highs of 27 and lows of 14. We're looking at sunny conditions in Kampala at 20. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 16, while at 24 it's mostly sunny in Dar es Salaam. It goes to highs of 30 and lows of 23. 5 degrees, slightly warmer in Johannesburg, partly sunny conditions, highs of 17 and lows of 3. And the rain has stopped for now in Lagos at 25. We'll see highs of 30 and lows of 24. And the sun is up in Kinshasa at 20. That'll be today's low. It'll go to highs of 31.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Okay, something's going on the Southern Bypass this morning. Actually, it's not the Southern Bypass. We're looking at the expressway. There's an exit traffic issue there. So some folks might be held up for some time. North Airport Road, then spilling over to Outer Ring, and then going eastward onto the Eastern Bypass is also slowing down significantly. Not quite sure what's going on there. We're looking at that junction of the AP Training College. Also on Jogo Road, that traffic that started really early in the morning is still doing the thing. And Langata Road also still busy. We know why. That interchange construction slows things down quite some into the middle of the cities, where we're seeing jam-packed action. Still continues on the Thika Superhighway. However, just past the Utali Drift out towards the Pangani Underpass. Muthaiga Square is where we will see lots of traffic coming off Coffee Gardens. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
At 20 to 9, we are back with a conversation with Alphonse Chiundu, who is the Vice Chair of the Fumbua Board and the Kenya Editor at Africa Check. CT.
When I first came across the term, the information age, I had not fully grasped what it meant. Then we got into the 21st century and it became apparent what it actually was. There is so much information at any given time. It's readily available. Anyone can access it, including children. Now, with so much information, the thing that I have noticed seems to happen is there's information that caters for every niche inclination. If I like violence, there'll be information that caters to that particular leaning that I have. If I'm inclined towards romance, whatever my inclination, if it's about my belief, whatever it is, I will find it. So when we talk about information in our sphere, even this information that is considered false, there are people who you will not dissuade because it falls into the general ambit of what they believe to be true. It may be absolutely false, but that's what they're inclined towards believing. Now, this brings me to ask this question. The Official Secrets Act. Countries have it. What role does it play in all this?
So, so the Official Secrets Act, what it does, I would like just take you a little back, so that as
far back
as I can.
Yes.
So we are looking at the Official Secrets Act. What it does is it determines what information can be public, and how it can be classified, and what you can put out and what you cannot as a civil servant, okay, or as a public official. Now, when you look
only public officials,
for public officials, like for public officials. So because there is an oath at the end of that act which they swear to do confidentiality, to conduct information confidentially. Right. Now, when you come to this other side, now the side where we are, the side of transparency, the side of where people are looking want information out, in 2015, Parliament debated and passed the Access to Information Act 2016. So that act, what it does, it gives the procedures on how we can access information held by the state. So anyone can ask the government for information, and the government is obligated to give that information. The law provides steps in which you can do that, but it also gives the government excuses or reasons to stop from giving you that information. National security is one of those that are the major reasons of why that information should not come out. Where does that leave us? The process for access to information works, but it's very, it does not guarantee transparency of the information that you're looking for. Sometimes you would ask for information, the government agency would say, I will give you this information, but not this part, not this part.
Heavily redacted.
Yes. And you end up with not knowing what the facts are. So there's that opacity. And for my conclusion, if we are going to say the Official Secrets Act is hampering the transparency, that is something that is can be backed by verifiable evidence. The other thing we have to know is that democracy itself dies in that kind of darkness. So we have to be in a space where we can access that information. If we cannot access it from government, then we have to find another place where we can get the same information. What you may not know, or what most people do not know, is that the government of Kenya reports to the IMF and to the UN agencies much more than it reports to its own citizens. So when you look at the databases held by the World Bank, by the IMF, by the UN, you find information about Kenya that you would never find on any government portal in Kenya. And that information is legit. Some of them are reports from the National Treasury, for example, that are sent there. And these reports would have details of, say, the government taking over payments of debt of a company like the KQ.
Mhm.
And then it's put out closer to the new year when people are celebrating. So by the time guys come out to realize, oh, this is what we have reported, by the time MPs are complaining in parliament that, hey, we cannot pay these guys this much money, it's a lot of money, that is, the deal is already done. They cannot, if they try to undo it, it brings down the whole house. So that's the kind of, it's just about being vigilant. And I thank the journalists of the country who do this, like follow those spaces and put this information out, because it really, really helps people to understand. Yes, we all have access to the internet. Yes, we all can access all those spaces if we wanted, but some of us do not know how to use the open source intelligence tools to get all this data. But all these tools are available to anyone with an internet connection. So that is part of what Fumbua has been doing, training people on this is where you can get this data.
Right.
This is where you can access this information. Your government might not give it to you, but it gave it to somebody else. Go to that somebody else. That person will give you that information. The WHO will give you the information. You just have to ask them. They will send it to you.
Isn't it, however, though, that this information is created because there's also the realization that there are many people who have an affinity for scandal or affinity for hearing these kind of, crazy things. So how then do you say fact check over something that you kind of have a natural desire to want to hear and ingest or consume in terms of information? How do you say, okay, well, we know that you like the scandal, and human beings naturally want something that's kind of crazy. Especially now we're going into in the throes of this election season, and it's stuff that comes at you. I mean, look at what happened over the last 1 week. Everybody was not really thinking about what is important. We're all thinking about who has a degree or not, right? And it's scandal. It's nice. You want to be enthralled in all of that. How then do you say, go and make sure you have the facts over something that you're actually enjoying being, an audience to?
What we usually say is if a fact checker is at a Christmas party and like City allow me to use you.
Please.
So we are at Christmas party, we are talking and we're saying...
This is for the public good.
Yes.
Carry on.
You be the man for the
In
job.
fact, embellish the story as you see fit.
Yes. And we are saying something, and then City walks in and says, I have a PhD in exactly what you're talking about. And you guys are off. You are wrong. What will you call him?
The expert.
No.
Party pooper.
Yes, we
Debbie
will ignore, because we are enjoying the conversation. We are enjoying that. So that is where that is where we are coming in as fact checkers, because we step in and we say, okay, I'll use the president because he's leaving anyway. So the president, the president goes out and he says, over the last 10 years, I have built 10,000 kilometers of roads. And you're a Kenyan, you're a media house, you listen to that and you decide, okay, the president has built 10,000 kilometers of road of 10 years. You leave Uhuru Gardens as you're driving through, going to Kangemi, you pass through James Gishuru and you see a big billboard, Asante Rais Kenyatta, Kokujenga Barabara, or something like that. And in your mind, you're like, this person has actually
really
done
worked.
it.
Validation,
Yes.
what he's just said, yeah.
Until you get back and sit and look at the records. And you check the records, you will see that when he addressed Parliament in 2016, the good president said he had built 3,000 kilometers of roads. When he came, the last State of the Nation address in 2017 before the election, he said he built 1,950 kilometers of roads.
1,950.
950.
So from 3,000, it got to 1,000.
It went to 1,900.
Yes.
And then, days after he speaks, his finance minister, the man who gave the money, comes and says it's 1,950. He writes in the Jubilee Manifesto that he has built 1,950. in his
kilometers of road.
In his first term. Yes. Then you listen to his State of the Nation in 2020, 2021. What do you hear? He says he has built 1,000 kilometers of roads every year. And now he says he's built 10,000 kilometers. Look at the data, because we love data. We try to find the data, and then we find that it is terrible. The data that is coming from the Kenya Roads Board, you look at that data that they present to the Treasury. By the end of 2017, they put out a report, the economic survey, that said they had done 9,000 kilometers of roads.
It's even better.
Right now, they are showing that they have done 11,000 kilometers. And the president says he has built
1,000 a year.
1,000 a year.
Yes.
Because when you're looking at that data, it is so bad. You can never tell. If you follow the money, because we try all angles, follow the money, follow steel and cement importation into the country and consumption. And then you just find a discrepancy, for example. When the data is showing that the road constructed increased, the money spent went down. So how is that? How does that happen? Is it like new technology of building cheaper roads, where at a time when you're building an expressway? Those are things, and we get to talk to engineers, and we ask engineers, okay, we are hitting a rock here. And this is where now I have to bring in the Access to Information Act. We file an Access to Information request with the Ministry of Transport. Those guys respond. And they say, can you give us a breakdown of the kind of information you want? And we give a breakdown of every detail of information we want. So a geolocation of the road, where it was constructed, when it started, when it ended, such details, who the contractor was, and the length. They go mute. We report them to the Office of the Ombudsman. We need this data, because that's what the law says, report them. The Ombudsman asks them. They say, oh, we have received a letter from the Ombudsman. Do you still need the information? We say, yes. That information is with the transport engineer. We go to the transport engineer. We have a chat. And he says, I'm going to send you the information. It's not written in letter. It's not like you ask for the letter. He says, what do you want? An information or a letter acknowledging that I am promising to give you the information? And so you end up, this takes so long, and they know we do not have a budget to take them to court. So they will just sit back. And to date, we keep on requesting that information. They keep on looking at it, and it's that we are ending up not acknowledging.
So you have nothing with which to say this information is incorrect?
We have nothing with which to say this information is incorrect, but we have everything to say that this information is wrong. The data is so bad, you cannot actually say that. It's very incoherent. It cannot, even if you bring the president here and ask him to give a detail of the roads, you will end up with a situation where we ended up with a portal, where the portal would say, we built this road, it's 10 kilometers. The people on the ground are calling you and saying, look, which road? These are the pictures right now. So that is the kind of place where we are, and it's this transparency, data transparency. It's very important. Why would data about roads be so difficult to release? It's stuff that people use. If you have actually built, why is it so hard to put it out? Those are the things that we want people to ask.
Because actually, ordinarily,
yes,
if indeed you had built the roads, it should be your joy
to put it
to
out.
tell people and say, folks,
they're his.
Here we are.
But those billboards that Alphonse is talking about are showing the roads.
The billboards
it's just that now we'll not have billboards of 11,000 kilometers.
Actually,
surely.
I have a problem with these billboards. I have a problem with the billboards because why are you insisting that we should thank the president for doing what he was supposed to do anyway? Why? And what are we thanking him for exactly? Because if you look at the promises that his party made, the manifesto they had, the thank you would be Thank you. You people fulfilled your promises. A few kinks here and there, but by and large, excellent job. There are wonderful things that has been done under the president's watch. Yes, but that's the nature of the job. That's what he's supposed to do.
It's acknowledging, CT.
No.
There's nothing wrong with acknowledgement.
No.
So if I could just jump in at this point.
Please come in.
When we are doing like towards the election in the countries that Africa Check operates in, Nigeria, Senegal, South Africa, and in Kenya, we have something we call a promise tracker. And a promise tracker is what fact checkers do. So if somebody makes a promise at what's in their manifesto, we note it down and we track it across the years. So if they say they are going to build 24,000 kilometers, the way Jubilee administration said, then we check to find out if that is indeed what they built. If they say something like they are going to put this number of people under medical insurance, we check to find out what there is. So it is a very good way, and it will be very helpful if an administration acknowledges that, hey, this is what we have done. This is the evidence of our performance. Why is it good? Because the next administration gets to a place where it can make laws and policies based on an existing reality. So they know what the situation on the ground is, and then they can start planning and budgeting and policy making from that point. When you look at the manifestos that were put out, for example, the manifestos would say we have this number of roads, and we want to build, 5,000 megawatts of power?
Yep.
Yes. They are making a promise. They are making
a statement of intent.
A statement of intent. But it's not best, like the premise is wrong. You do not understand what's the situation, what's the energy demand. Why are you making, if you say 5,000 megawatts, where is it going to be used?
Break it down so that we understand what it's supposed to do and how it's supposed to help the economy.
Exactly.
In fact, I am of the view that those posters should exist, those billboards should exist, but it should be the president thanking the people of Kenya
for allowing him to do the job.
Yes, for being long-suffering, for being a good citizenry who don't bother you too much, a citizenry who put up with a great deal. There are things to thank the president for. Specifically,
you're a teacher, Buana. You always reward a child.
These things that you talked about, Alphonse. Now, to say that when you see a billboard like that, and then you know that the information that you've been getting from the relevant authorities has been dodgy at best, is that poster or is that billboard then misinformation?
The billboard is, because I think he knows. I think at that point you know what you have done. Yeah, so you're probably putting out just the misleading stuff.
So it's disinformation.
So we would fact check you and say this is the stuff that you have done. This is actually what you have done. So whether people should be thanking you or not, we will not get into that space because it's a very contentious space, as CT has shown. But this is an election season.
Yes.
Governors at all levels, governors, presidents, they are going to be in a place where they are exaggerating their achievements while in office.
Yes.
So what do people need to do? That's the point where you come in and you ask, okay, you're saying you built 10 cattle dips. Where are they? You're saying you employed 3,000 people in the county or 3,000 people in government. Where are they? And what? It's not just enough for us to wait and watch the numbers. The other thing that mainstream media should also have to worry is that the sophistication of political campaigns is such that they target mainstream media deliberately. And I'll give you an example. As I wind up, just indulge me, Latiff. You find a website is up with the name of a presidential candidate as an alumni of Leipzig University. Mainstream media run with it as if it's factual. This gentleman has written books. Books have been written about him. At no time in his life history does he say
he went to Leipzig University.
He did his graduate studies at Leipzig. But the mainstream media do that. So the point that I'm trying to push is even if you know that, oh, this thing has been put out and is next to this, all these things, please try and verify.
Okay.
Because you would not. It's just not good not to put out unverified information, because you end up misleading and disinforming public.
Alphonse, thank you for joining us. Come again next week, Tuesday. We'll have the same conversation. Alphonse Yundu is the Kenya editor for Africa Check. He's also vice chair of the Fumbua board. A very good morning to you. It's 9 a.m. More conversations coming up.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Have signed up to cast their ballots, increasing by more than 12%. The Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission said there will be 22.1 million voters on the register, up from 19.6 million 5 years ago. Now, Roots presidential candidate Professor George Wajackoyah now says that his journey to the presidency is aimed at giving Kenyans the rights they deserve. In an interview with SpiceFM Situation Room, he says that the current political players have treated leadership as though it's theirs and rule as they want. He says that the leadership has failed Kenyans and that he has come to correct the mess.
Who is making us to depend on countries like China? It's the same people, right? Mm-hmm. The constitution says, look at me, design me with my acceptance, let me participate. A few men go into the plane, get into the plane, go through those countries like China, and they come back with a package. Oh, this is for Kenya.
Where is the failure?
The failure is leadership. The failure is the president. The failure is cabinet. The failure is so-called civil servant. The failure is autocracy. The failure is corruption. The failure is lunacy.
He adds that those he worked with before with the hope that they will save Kenya are the ones mismanaging Kenya through their leadership.
It's an unfortunate situation that I worked with the likes of Odinga when we were in exile. We were there, they were in. It's like a graveyard. Those who are buried are in, sleeping. They can't wake up, they can't come out because there's a wall of silence. In which case, that was the wall of silence in Kenya because we were outside. We wanted to come in, but the regime will not allow us. So we trusted these folks. We spoke to them and we were like, what are we going to do there? We financed the trips, accommodation, security, and we had all legitimate hopes on them. Then they came in and they got it. What did they do with it? What can they show us? Rather than having that sympathy, oh, I fought, I was jail. I was also in jail. So does it mean that we were not in jail? Jail for what? Fighting for this country, right? Then these folks come here and then they bring in an ideology enhancing in capitalism of the highest order.
On the war on corruption, this is what he said.
There's nothing like human rights when you steal my food and sleep with my small kids. You molest my daughter who is 8 years old and you tell me human rights. If I get her, I'll kill you. And then you can take me and hang me up. I'm talking of those people who are really stealing Kenyans. Like today I saw in the newspaper, a civil servant stealing what he has stolen, building flats in Ugunja, Ukwala, and what have you. That kind of man, there's no point. There's no point. If he's found guilty, hang him in public as a deterrent to other people. It's no point of saying that tutakupeleka gereza uende ulale huko nini. No. Now, mine is zero tolerance on corruption. Hanged or you choose how to die because there will also be options. You want to die by lethal injection?
Shoot me in the head.
You want to die by cutting off your head? Do you want to die by chopping off your hand first? Do you want to take poison like Socrates?
And the independent presidential hopeful Reuben Kigame will not be on the ballot after the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission Dispute Resolution Committee upheld IEBC's decision to bar him from seeking the presidency. IEBC denied Kigame clearance after he failed to meet the 2,000 signatures required in at least 24 counties. The committee maintains that there was no waiver for compliance on signatures for persons living with disability and that Kigame ought to have complied. The committee said all candidates must be treated the same way, adding that the Constitution has at least considered persons living with disability as far as payment of nomination fees is concerned. It further ruled that it has no power to waive any requirement in favor of special groups, saying IEBC was right in denying Kigame clearance. At the same time, the committee has dismissed an appeal filed by presidential aspirant Walter Mongare over his education credentials. The Dispute Resolution Committee affirmed that the transcripts submitted by Nyambani are not an equivalent of a university degree. And the Council of Governors is at odds with the National Treasury yet again, protesting what it termed as lack of prompt disbursement of the counties. In a statement, COG lamented the decision by the Treasury to withhold 29 billion shillings meant for the 47 counties for the month of June, as well as another 9 billion shillings that was to be channeled to 16 counties. The failure to release funds, according to the Council's chairperson Martin Wambura, has negatively affected operations and delivery of services. And the Ministry of Health, through the National Hospital Insurance Fund, has signed MOUs with Roche Kenya Limited that will facilitate access to cancer treatment in Kenya. Principal Secretary Susan Mushache says that the MOU between NHIF will ensure patients access breast cancer treatment without co-payment. She said the two institutions have negotiated a price that fits well within the NHIF capitation for breast cancer treatment, therefore allowing members to access the service comprehensively. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
Chunky traffic on North Airport Road this morning, and we're leading out to Outer Ring, and then that slows down as you get to that junction. But Outer Ring doesn't look too bad as you're heading out to the Thika Superhighway. Shouldn't be too much of a problem as we're going out there. Lunga was creating a bit of a problem earlier, but that has been sorted out, and we're looking at traffic still continuing on Jogo Road this morning. Getting out the Nairobi Expressway, giving some people some issues this morning with exits and paying at exits. Remember, you can't use, M-Pesa? On the expressway, you got to use cash, right? Langata Road, that still continues a little bit as you get to the mouth of the interchange. Gong Road also, that has reduced quite significantly. Bagathi Way also looks okay. Raila Odinga Way looking much better. Coming off of Kiambu Road as well, traffic situation at least now is breathable. Keep breathing, folks. Tell us just in case things get a bit tight. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It is 7 minutes after 9. Good morning, and how are you doing? The 21st day of June 2022. Kenya's biggest conversation enters the final hour of today's show. We have a guest in the studio. This is a man who wants to be the next governor of Machakos County. Yesterday, we had a lady who'd like to be the next governor of Machakos County. Today is the turn of Nzioka Waita to occupy the hot seat. Before we welcome him and introduce him to the show, let's hear the day's proverb, City.
From Pate Island.
Okay.
Amani haipatikani ila kwa ncha ya upanga. Peace comes not save by the point of the sword. I think we discussed at length the many ramifications and meanings that you can attach to a sword or a machete, as we call them, a panga, a utility instrument, a weapon, and the significance of it thereof. Yes. But
all those.
All of the above. But the thing that is a constant is that on its own, it has no real power. But when it's wielded by a human being, then it acquires meaning.
You had also said at the beginning of the show that there is an Amu dialect. Kiamu.
What I said was when you speak the Kiswahili language, the thing you need to understand is that when you speak Kiswahili and you're originally from Mombasa, Kimwambao, if you are in Lamu and you speak their Kiswahili, it's Kiamu. If you go to Zanzibar, it's Kiunguja. It is Swahili as you understand it, but there will be a distinct dialect. You will need to sort of like retrain your ears and your hearing apparatus, especially the software that deals with the Kiswahili language. It requires a little tweaking for you to actually understand what is being said. It's precisely. Yes, that is precisely it.
Okay. Nzioka Waita, did you get that proverb? Let's
Kabisa. Completely.
Amani haiji ila kwa ncha ya upanga.
Yes.
What do you translate from that?
I'll take it in my context. You know, the fight to liberate Machakos from incompetence will not come easy. It will meet many obstacles, and it must be fought for. You know, they say serikali haipewi kama peremende kwa soko, inachukuliwa. Kwa hivyo sisi tumejipanga kuchukua serikali.
Your party is Chama cha Uzalendo. Not many people have interacted with this party before your candidacy.
Now, my party is very interesting because it is the party of Gitobwe Munyara, it is the party of Johnston Modhama, it's the party of the late Senator Kabaka, it's the party of Wavinya Ndeti. It's a very famous party in Machakos. So it's a big fish in a small pond, so to speak. It may not be known. It may not be known nationally, but all those are previous party leaders of Chama cha Uzalendo, which is one of the reasons that drew me to it, because we didn't want to start our political campaigns with a party that had no grassroots recollection amongst voters. So we took the most controversial option, which has worked quite well.
When you say quite well, what do you mean?
People know CCU. The late Senator Kabaka, who was my predecessor in the office, won the Senate seat completely against the run of play. And he took a lot of time to establish the roots for the party. My competitor, whom I'm running up against, was also at a point fielded as a gubernatorial candidate by the party. And so much so was the party's grassroots mobilization so effective that the big brothers came to ask her to come and stand on that party instead, because they couldn't fathom the thought of being beaten by a small party in Machakos. But be that as it may, it has a rich history. Democratic people who fought for a democratic space like Gitobwe Munyara have been associated with the party and gave it legs in the early 2000s. Some of the more political experienced politicians, perhaps one of the most experienced politicians in our region, Johnston Modhama, was also a member of the party. So it does have its pedigree, yes. But for me, I feel that parties are important in terms of encapsulating the candidate, but clothes do not make the man. And I would rather be defined by the clarity of thought that I have, the agenda that I have for the people of Machakos, and not so much the party. Because when you go to the voters, they are very wary of party politics. Actually, in Machakos specifically, the people of Machakos don't really want to hear about party politics in its traditional sense.
Why is that?
Because they feel that they've been under the thumb of a political party for the last 2 decades, close to 35 years actually, and they've seen no development. They have no tangible progress. And what we have is just graduates of a school of politics that believes in, I don't know how you call it, it's more of a club than a party designed to serve the needs of the people. It's really designed to serve the needs of individual leaders. And I really want to break that because I don't particularly like politics. And I need to say it quite loudly. I don't like politics. I've never enjoyed politics.
You don't like the politics we have in this country? Or
no, I just generally don't like politics. I find it of nuisance value.
Why?
Because politics and development are not the same thing.
No, they're not.
And but you have to go through a political process in order to achieve a development imperative.
So they're strange bedfellows.
So they are strange bedfellows, uncomfortable bedfellows, and you have to just live with it. So I'm living with it, but I'm doing it within my conscience. I said, win or lose this seat, I will not sell my soul to the altar of politics for politics' sake.
Okay.
I will be clear on my agenda for the people. I will define my politics based on issues, and I will not own the space of talking rubbish in the name of politics. I would leave that to my competitors who are quite adept at it.
So the things that you've heard the people of Machakos say to you so far, or the things that you have seen, obviously being a son of the soil, right? You said at the beginning that you want to take it back from those who've messed it up.
Yes.
So what has been messed up? And then, seeing what has spoiled, what then would you want to fix? Or how would you bring about any kind of change?
So there's so many things wrong with Machakos. Everything you see is a facade. So you have the place to be, which looks all very nice. You have all these nice flowers.
Public toilets.
No, actually the public toilets are locked in most markets, and they don't have water, and they don't have a plan to clean them. But the biggest telltale sign that things are broken in Machakos is the health system, starting all the way from Gateway Mall to the farthest corner of Machakos County. And the health system has completely collapsed irretrievably. You do not have medicine in any of the hospitals. You have ambulances that were probably public service vehicles for ferrying goods like potatoes and maize that were converted into medical vehicles. You have a situation where our medics are not treated well. You imagine a county of 1.4 million people, 85 medics, 25 of whom are on study leave. You know, the patient to doctor ratio is so skewed that in any permutation, people will not get any form of decent health care. And the revenue that we've been collecting as a county, this current county government you have out of a budget of 12 billion, close to 80% is recurrent expenditure. I mean, it's unbelievable.
There, Whiter. The current governor of Machakos County sat there some months ago.
He sat here.
Some months ago, and told us that because people were complaining about several things, or infrastructure, the roads are a mess, etc. And he said, look, we can't do everything with the money that we get. But what we have made sure that we have done is to focus specifically on health. N'est-ce pas? Focus specifically on health because, you know, we can't get enough. So let me make sure that the people are well, and then they can now go on to do other things. So what you're saying then, there seems to be then disparity between that which was said and that which you're saying today.
Look, you know, Governor Mutua is not standing for re-election. So I'm just have to measure how much I really want to tell the people. But the Wananchi know that the health sector has collapsed completely. And it's so bad that if you go to Machakos Level 5 hospital today, you will have to remove money from your own pocket to buy razor blades, to buy gloves, to buy syringes for injection. And if you really want the nurse to look after you, you better find a way of, appreciating them. Because their terms of service are terrible. The county government has not invested in the welfare of medical staff. You know, and that's where this whole journey starts. If you don't look after your medics, and it doesn't matter whether you're talking about specialist doctors, starting from community health workers, you know, the fight against COVID was led by community health workers, people who would go out and educate the public about wearing face masks, about washing hands, and things like that. We have 2,300 of them in Machakos that are now on the 10th month of not having been paid their stipends. You come into the hospital itself, clinical officers, lab technicians, doctors themselves, not getting adequate support in terms of allowances and stipends to work in areas that are quite remote in the county. Then you look at the arrangement, the supply chain for drugs to get into the hospitals. That has also collapsed. Then you look at the level 5 support that was given by the national government in terms of diagnostic equipment. So Machakos level 5 hospital has cutting edge MRI, cutting edge mammography, cutting edge CT scan, X-ray machines, you name it, the best of the best dialysis machines. None of those are in use.
Why?
Because the operating costs are to be met by the county government.
Yes.
Consumables are to be met by the county government. And there seems to be a coalition of the willing, I don't know how to describe it, where a patient will come in with an obvious broken limb, be given a prescription to go to the 2 private hospitals which are next door to get the X-ray.
And yet the hospital has the equipment.
Yes, not just the equipment, the best of breed equipment.
So where's the problem? Because, well, we can see these are the things that are not working. Let's just focus on health. What are the reasons why these things are not working? Yet there is money that comes to the county. There is money that's collected by the county. And you've told us 80% of this is going into recurrent expenditure, which includes purchasing the consumables and paying staff.
Electing politicians is the first problem. The second problem is delusions of grandeur. So governors get into office, ours in particular, and you feel that you are a president. I don't know where this impression comes in. You feel that you're so powerful that you now do not have a responsibility or accountability to the people. You're almost a law unto yourself. And this is the tragedy of devolution in a lot of the counties, because the governors don't see themselves as administrators. Administrative work requires you to be in the office in the morning, planning things, working with your team, making sure you have competent people at every point of inflection. So who is your hospital administrator? Who is your health CEC? Who is your health chief officer? Are they ready to do this work? And are you motivating them? Are you holding them accountable? Are there performance contracts in place? What is a picture of success? We know what the picture of failure is because that's what we see everywhere. But what was the picture of success? And for me, the picture of success would be very simple. I'm not going to make big promises to the people of Machakos. I'll simply tell them, we will return medicine to the hospitals. We will restore the referral system so that when you go to a dispensary, the dispensary will cure you for what the dispensary can handle. When you go to level 3 facility, we will make sure you can be handled up till level 3. If you need a referral to level 4 and level 5, you follow. That way, we can plan our resources accordingly, distribute our doctors and medics accordingly, understand where we need outreach programs, because the county is quite vast. A lot of the community will never be able to make their way into hospitals. So having an effective community health volunteer system is mission critical. Because
there's some things I don't get. I'm sorry to interject, because I'm hearing all these things and I'm wondering, okay, are you really saying that there was no plan and there was no management of all these things throughout the time? Was it a lack of leadership, or was it lack of capacity to lead?
It's a lack of capacity. It's a lack of capacity.
Who's your running mate?
With the best of intentions. My running mate is the sitting speaker of the County Assembly of Machakos.
Okay. So what is the job of the County Assembly in ensuring that the executive works?
So the County Assembly strings together the legislation, passes it and hands it over to the executive to execute. Now, from an oversight point of view, it will be interesting for you to note that several CECs, including the deputy governor, have been impeached and are operating by virtue of court orders. So the oversight function of the County Assembly was exercised by MCAs.
But they kept passing the budget.
What do? You're held by court orders. And by the way, the budget which is passed is not what is executed. The budget looks good. I'm sure you've seen the budgets. The budgets look very good. And if you don't pass the budget, you create a fiscal crisis. We've not reached that level of sophistication in our democracy where you can hold out passing the budget. Because if you don't pay county staff and the money does not start to flow on recurrent commitments, then things can deteriorate very quickly. The question is, are the recurrent commitments the right commitments? Are we sure that we are getting value, bang for the buck for everything that the county is paying for?
Right.
And how do we hold the executive accountable? You know?
You did mention the vastness of this county. I mean, we're looking at, really vast. If we're talking at Gateway Mall here, and I asked this question yesterday, but I'm asking it to you as well.
Yeah.
Starting at Gateway Mall and then going all the way into Machakos, in past the junction.
Yes.
But then you're also looking right around the other side, almost embracing Kiambu County as you pass Yatta and go in that direction.
Yes.
However, many have complained that those who get the most of the attention are those right in the middle. And that the infrastructure on other sides, I mean, because look, until, what is this place called? Until eating well into Machakos County is still considered part of the NEM, the Nairobi metropolitan area.
Yes.
But many have complained that the infrastructure has gone to the dogs. Maybe it was there the whole time. And so the question is, how can you have a dormitory area of Nairobi, right, look the way it does, and no attention has been given to it? And then the hope is that anybody who is paying serious attention to infrastructure will pay attention to this.
Okay, so you have Machakos is a very diverse county. You have a very urbanized part of Machakos, so where you have Mavoko, Athi River, Machakos town, fairly urban, on par with Nairobi, Kiambu and others, save for the infrastructure. And then you have extremely remote, forgotten parts of the county. Now, what happens is politically, what has been the trend is that people say Syokimau, Mulolongo, all the way until Green Park. Kelele mingi, kura chache. A lot of noise, not enough votes. So people don't pay enough attention to it. They go look for the votes elsewhere. Now, I see it slightly differently. The breadbasket, the revenue opportunities for Machakos County are largely, probably over 70% lie in Athi River, Mavoko. Without changing rates, without increasing a single penny, without doing anything, simply collecting and facilitating people to do what they need to do. Housing developments. You will recall that Syokimau was a Syokimau farm. It was a big farm. Minimum subdivision were 5 acres up until the mid-90s. Beyond that was Embakasi ranching. Beyond that was Mangeli farm. Beyond that, you are now into Portland and others. So the housing boom came so fast that the planning didn't catch up with it. Mavoko County Council didn't keep up with the owners on the subdivision of roads and the infrastructure, the building of infrastructure to support the housing. And you had 5-acre properties that were initially having 3 or 4 cows and 2 people, now having 1,000 units with 3 people each. Digging boreholes of 800 meters down and completely destabilizing the water table in the area. And that's the reality we have to live with. So my plan is very simple. I will squeeze every penny out of the national government that is due under the metropolitan road infrastructure to make sure that the roads and the sewer system in Syokimau all the way until Athi River are done and completed within the next 5 years. As of priority, because we must get parity of treatment with Kiambu and Murang'a. And we must see the same level of development because Nairobi will only expand in the direction of Machakos, both industrially and in terms of residential units. So it's not a good to have, it's a must have. Now, if we plan our towns correctly, if we plan under the NAMSI program, we plan Mavoko municipality correctly. We plan Tala and Kangundo correctly. We plan Matu and Masi correctly. That should give us sufficient on-source revenue to put facilities in the rest of the sub-counties that do not have revenue opportunities. They have just small farmers markets, that have very little revenue potential. In fact, if anything, we need to find a way of completely reducing what those market women are paying to operate their stores, because they are not the primary source of revenue for us. And for me, the cosmopolitan nature of Mavoko Athi River requires a different type of politics. Everybody must feel accepted. If a border guy has an accident in Athi River and he's taken to Machakos level 5 and they look at his name and the name starts with O, they say, why aren't you in your home county? You know, and this is the thing, the reality of Machakos is in Mavoko now, 50% of the population are non-campus. There are people from all over Kenya. And they have come to make their homes, their investment, and their lives. And as a governor, I must make them enjoy their livelihoods, enjoy living there, enjoy playing there, enjoy investing. And if they fall sick, be treated as a first-class citizen in Machakos County.
Bonawaita, you know, I've been listening to you, and you remind me of compelling evangelists who actually know their scripture, and they'll carry you along with them, and you feel, okay, this promised land isn't a fairy tale, it's actually true. 3 questions. Water has been a problem. What do you plan to do? 2, you talk about revenue.
Yes.
What is the potential revenue of that county? And the reality of whatever budgetary concerns that the county has and whatever the leanings have been, is it a true reflection of what the money that is given to that county on a yearly basis, is it a true reflection of where the money actually goes to? Now, 3, the question of squatters and the invasion of people's properties within that county. What do you plan to do with this? These are simple questions.
Okay, let me start at the top. The water, Machakos is not as dire as it appears. The situation is bad, but there are solutions which are very tangible. In our manifesto, we have committed to tackling the issue of water in 3 buckets. Number 1 is bulk water infrastructure. Bulk water infrastructure will come from 3 sources. We will have a new pipeline from Masinga to serve Masinga, Yatta, and Mwala on bulk water infrastructure, which is basically a new pipeline. Number 2 is we will make sure that the water from the northern collector, which is coming up until Mavoko, Mlolongo, you've seen the huge Belgian project that is there. That water will now be distributed to cover Joska, Modwani, Katani, Syokimau, Mulolongo, down into Athi River, Embakasi, Makadara, Sofia, Kasoito, Kicheko, and others, and go all the way up until Devki and into Kenania. Then we'll have the third bulk water infrastructure coming from the Nol-to-Resh, which is the Kilimanjaro water. And that will serve Malili, Konza, Machakos town, and up until Chumbi and parts of Stony Athi all the way until Green Park. And make sure that that water is distributed and metered and collected by our water company, Mawasco.
But when is this possible?
This is all
in the future.
No, this is not future. You have to have a plan. You know, if you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. We have a plan to execute. It will take us easily up to 3 years to put up a new pipeline from Masinga. But that will provide a lasting solution to the water problems in the most hard-hit areas of Machakos County. The Belgian project, the Northern Collector project, is complete. But the water company in Machakos and Mavoko have not completed the reticulation infrastructure. And the reticulation infrastructure must be done with a wider imperative. It must be done with roadworks in mind. It must be done with sewer lines in mind, both of which are non-existent in Mololongo, Syokimau, particularly on the residential side. The factories came together and built some form of sewer line that goes all the way until the treatment plant near the EPZ. So you find that that's one. Sorry, I told you the 3 buckets on how we'll deal with water. The second is to take advantage of already existing gullies, what we call earth dams and water dams and water pans, and make sure that we build as many as possible and provide reticulation to the nearest points around those dams. Because the big issue is there's no point in having a dam, no way to treat the water and no way to distribute the water to community points. So we are not going to promise to distribute it to people's homes because that's not realistic. We will first take it to village points and community locales and allow them to then distribute the water from there. This goes together with boreholes, and not boreholes for boreholes' sake. You know, Governor Mutua has drilled 670 boreholes on paper. They claim, if that were true, there would be 17 boreholes per ward in the 40 wards, which means the water problem would have been effectively been cured. But you know, the business of boreholes is patapotea. You know, you might drill a borehole, find no water. Right. You might drill a borehole and find highly salinated water or highly mineralized water, or you might drill a borehole and find very low yield. If you are lucky and get a high yielding borehole, then you can pump it out and distribute. But that's not happening right now. So we'll do a survey and make sure that any good performing boreholes, we are able to pump it and reticulate it, again, within the confines of the community. So if it has a yield of 10 cubic, you know how many people that can serve. There's a ratio in terms of per capita, how many that can serve. We then go now to protection of catchment areas. So you'll be surprised. 2 of the highest yielding boreholes in Kenya are in Machakos. There is one in Matungulu, a place called Ngangalia, and there is another one in Mwala in a place called Biuni. Those 2 boreholes are probably upwards of 30, 40, probably even going to 100 cubic per liter. So they can supply entire sub-counties. The issue is putting correct reticulation and protecting the catchment areas. The primary catchment area for water in Machakos County is, number 1 is the Athi, what you call the Athi Aquifer. So the Ngong supplies a lot of the underground water into Machakos. The second is the Mua Hills. The third is Makaveti, the forests around Kadhiani going all the way to the top. Now, protecting those catchment areas allows us to deal with the springs that are all at the bottom of those hills. So, for example, in a place like Mumbuni and Mutituni, it's full of springs. But what did we do? We planted blue gums all around our springs. And what is the purpose of blue gum? Blue gum completely obliterates your underground water sources. So it's really a question of converting methodically our community to understand that the resources are there and we have a way of getting it to them. To your second question, revenue. The pent
Can
up.
we take a break there?
Yes.
And then we can come back and talk about revenue.
Okay.
It's 22 minutes to 10. Kenya's biggest conversation. George Wajackoyah is the party leader of Chama cha Uzalendo. He is a gubernatorial candidate for Machakos County. We're having a conversation about what he would like to do if he gets the vote of the Machakos County residents and voters to become the next governor. It's a month. It's Father's Month.
It is. Father's Day was Sunday, but Saratoga City makes Father's Day a continuous celebration throughout the month of June. Looking for ways to bond with your dad this Father's Day month at Saratoga City. Many things that you can do. Maybe a fitness challenge with Smash Fit gyms, maybe superbike displays, music on the rooftop, and art exhibition by Sana. Arts, many things to do and make the month continuously special for your special guy, your dad.
Let's take this quick break, take a look at the weather and traffic and some business news. We'll be back to the conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to SpiceFM.
Feel the roar. KCB is bringing you the World Rally Championship on the 23rd to the 26th of June 2022. Tune in to the Spice Drive with
The
me,
sun is
Edward
coming out in
Quach,
Nairobi
to
at
find
17.
out.
We'll see highs of 24 and lows of 13. It's sunny at 16 in Nakuru, highs of 24. 23 will be the high. In a mostly cloudy Nyeri, currently at 17. And it's mostly sunny at 16. In Eldoret, we'll see highs of 22 today and lows of 12. The rain is back in Mombasa at 26. It'll go to highs of 29 today. Rain showers also continuing in Malindi at 27. We'll see highs of 29. Sunny conditions at 22 in Kisumu, highs of 28 and lows of 18. While we're looking at partly sunny conditions at 22 in Kakamega, highs of 27 and lows of 14. It's mostly sunny at 23 in Kampala. We'll see highs of 26, or we'll see highs of 30 in now a rainy Dar es Salaam at 25. Slightly warmer at 6 degrees in Johannesburg. We'll see highs of 17 and lows of 5. And it's partly sunny at 25 in Lagos. Highs of 30. 31 will be the high. In a mostly sunny Kinshasa at 20. It's 33 and sunny. It'll go to highs of 37 in Beijing going into evening Tuesday and lows of 26. Partly sunny at 16 in Paris, highs of 25, and 23 will be the high in a sunny London at 15. And we'll round things out in New York, it's 21 degrees. Coming into Tuesday, we'll see highs of 25 and lows of 18.
Spice up your life.
In the middle of the city is where you see most of the action this morning. Dregs of traffic coming off of traffic hour. North Airport Road still continues to do that thing as it spills over towards Outer Ring, but it shouldn't be too painful getting in that easterly direction. Langata Road looking a lot better now. Uhuru Highway is where we're taking the largest hit, as well as Jogo Road and a little bit of Lunga. Coming off Thika Superhighway, free and clear, but we're just seeing the remains of traffic on Kiambu Road and Limuru Road as well. Not been too bad of a day. Traffic hour is over officially, but let's take a look at what happens through the morning. Talk to us. SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
Business news with Spice FM.
I'm Dennis Aseto. Investments in housing slowed in 2021, leading to a decline in unit prices, according to the Housing Price Index report by the Kenya Bankers Association. The report indicates that the decline reflects headwinds in the economy that influenced both demand and supply. House prices on average went down by 1.82% in the first quarter of 2021, overturning the marginal recovery of 0.22% recorded in the fourth quarter of 2020. And Africa's aviation sector is expected to trim net losses to $700 million this year from $1.1 billion recorded in 2021 as low vaccination rate in the continent drags down recovery. This is according to the Global Outlook for Air Transport report by the International Air Transport Association IATA. Africa has the least percentage of fully vaccinated population at 15.2% compared to 63.3% in Europe, America's 68.8%, Western Pacific at 3.7%, Southeast Asia 64.5%, and Eastern Mediterranean at 43.9%. Kenyans living abroad sent home 39.4 billion shillings last month compared to 41.2 billion shillings sent in April 2022 as remittance inflows reduced 4.4%. This comes on the backdrop of a warning from the World Bank last month stating that uncertainty and risks in the outlook for remittances to Africa this year through next year are exceptionally high against the background of global conditions affected by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Kenya is a net oil importer, accounting to 20% of the country's import bill. For Spice Business, I'm Dennis Aseto.
Spice FM Business.
It is 9:45. Kenya's biggest conversation continues. Nzioka Waita, gubernatorial candidate for Machakos County. Nzioka, you talked about the first, one of the questions that CT had asked you. Water provision, water reticulation, what the plan was. Before we actually now start interrogating it, you were just about to start on revenue and revenue collection.
So the World Bank, the latest World Bank study on devolved units puts the pent-up revenue, the revenue potential for Machakos County closer to about 5 billion shillings. Right now, per year, on source revenue, so generated within the county, excluding shareable revenue from the national government. So right now we are underperforming because we are collecting roughly about 1.6, 1.7. You know, there are some factors that could be mitigating factors, you know, like COVID and everything. But if you look at a trend line from 2013 through to Corona, the underperformance has been consistent. There are huge revenue opportunities that have been left out. And revenue opportunities that do not involve taxing anyone, just simply collecting what is due to be paid.
You see, Bwana, the question that is always asked is it that is the amount that is collected, or is it the amount that you see in your books? Because
you can't discount leakage, you know. You can't discount leakage, and primarily that difference between the 5 billion and the 1.6 billion is leakage. It's leakage, and it's leakage that, you know, the Auditor General and other agencies should pay a keen interest in. I particularly want to focus governing forward. You know, I'm not a forensic auditor. I don't want to waste time digging into the past. I want to focus primarily on closing revenue leakage loopholes, making sure that we prioritize our expenditure. The staff of Machakos County government are very nervous, you know, and I want them to know that their new governor is going to make sure that they get promoted.
What are they nervous about?
Because they've been handled like, you know, school children. I don't know how to explain it. There's no scheme of service that makes sense. They don't have proper medical cover. They don't have any form of job security. Meritocracy has been thrown out the window. So they don't see growth opportunities. And the public service in the county is like any other career environment. People want to see progression. They want to know, if I'm going to be a career public servant, I want to know how I'm going to progress. Nobody starts a job thinking that I'm going to die here as an inspector of markets. People want to come in, you want to be hired, and you want to grow. And I want to give the staff of Machakos County a proper plan on a scheme of service that allows them to become respectable public servants.
So is
because
this a failure?
I do this for the benefit of the people.
Is this a failure of the county public service board, the SRC? Where are the? Because you're saying so many things are not working when it comes to staff and staff welfare.
The fish rots from the head. The fish rots from the head. When you elect somebody who does not have the capability for organizational discipline, that's what happens. You know, being a county governor is not about red carpets and toilets following you everywhere. Being a governor means you need to spend some time, look at the organizational architecture of the county, find a way to make sure that your employees are happy and that they understand the work they have been employed to do and they are paid to do it on time. And in fact, in my view, we don't have enough employees in the county. I keep hearing people talking about privatizing garbage collection. This garbage has never been collected. You can't talk about privatizing garbage collection when no attempt has been made to collect it in the first place. You know, it's what is happening is like a scramble for Europe, the scramble for Machakos. My competitors are busy dishing out promises to contractors and businessmen, telling them how they'll win this contract here, they'll win this contract there. I love businessmen and I'm going to grow the businessmen of Machakos, but I have a responsibility first to make the county government function properly, because people have been paying rates. They want to know why Tala is so dirty, why Machakos town is so dirty. Migwani, Kenya, Israel is a cesspit. You know, when you go to hospitals, contracts have been given for cleaning of hospitals and the contractors have not been paid. Now, it's okay to have a dirty street. Can you imagine a dirty hospital with disposal of medical waste and the dangers that surround that whole situation?
Biohazard.
You know, we are talking some serious things. But the long and short of it is this. The revenue potential is 5 billion. The gap is we are currently collecting 1.6, 1.7 billion. We will do everything possible to get our revenue collection up. and we'll put it out in our detailed manifesto on how we plan to do that. We will also try and look at rebalancing the expenditure because you cannot have 80-20. 80 recurrent, 20 development can't work. It actually doesn't matter how much money you get from the national government if all of it is going to recurrent that is not visible. So if you're doing recurrent, ideally then your hospital should be working, but they are not. So where is the recurrent going?
Why don't you talk about 70% then of this county, going this way towards Athi River?
Yes.
Right? Whereby there's a lot of potential in terms of, commercial activity. It is also, again, a location whereby a lot of environmental issues have come up in the last 1 year. Whether we're talking about industry that's polluting the environment, whether we're talking about because of the case of lack of infrastructure when it comes to sewage systems, again, environment. So there's unfortunately this unhealthy relationship between residents who want to make their home, again, from around the country, and the lack of certain things, plus those who really just don't give a toss about the environment. That clash has been there forever. What do you think then is the right intervention for this problem? People have died, people have gone to court, there are court cases which are still, ongoing. What would be the solution?
My first executive action will be to submit the NAMSIP plan to the county assembly for approval. The NAMSIP plan is a zoning and township planning exercise that has been done in conjunction with the Ministry of Housing, Infrastructure, Urban Planning, and funded by the World Bank. I will make sure we put that through the county assembly, get it out intact, and start to implement. What does it mean? It means that industries and residential areas can coexist. We are not the first country to have residences near airports and industrial areas. What we have is an abdication of responsibility. So NEMA the National Environmental Management Authority put the legal framework for enforcement, but a lot of the last mile enforcement must be done at the county level. So for example, emission standards, effluent standards, the big investors, when you give plan approval, you don't have a sewer line to give that investor. So from day one, they should be discharging into a biodigester system and a water treatment facility before they're allowed to discharge that water into the Athi River. Now, the Athi River is toxic. It's completely toxic. So you can imagine farming communities along the Athi River, all of which is Ukambani, because the Athi River cuts across the entire plain of Ukambani. All those people have been growing cabbages, skumawikis and stuff, which you are eating in your supermarkets here. And I don't need to tell you how this story ends. But it is a clear...
Thwake Dam is being fed by this same river now.
Thwake is a wonderful project, but it is a clear and present danger to us because in the absence of cleaning the Athi River, the Thwake River, and all the tributaries that feed into the Thwake, we will have the biggest sewer in Kenya. And passing treatment, it's one thing to treat raw sewage. It's another thing to treat chemical pollution.
Right.
Heavy metals and other things which now are leading to the when did you hear in the rural areas everybody second home having cancer cases? Now we spend all our time raising money in Harambes to send people for cancer screening because of what's happening with the water. Now, I want the people of Machakos to elect me because I will ensure that this issue of cleaning Athi River starts in Nairobi, because there are portions of the Athi River, 5 tributaries which pass through the heart of Nairobi. Kerichwa Kubwa, Kerichwa Ndogo, Mbagathi River, and others which start, in Gong side. The others start in a place called Ondiri Swamp, and Kikuyu. And all this water comes into one side, passes through Kangemi, Mishogwe, another passes through Kawangware, another passes through Kibera, another passes through Mukuru. So what do you get at the end of it? The rest passes through Ruai and others, where sewage is disposed right into the river. So take Mukuru. Mukuru is 8 kilometers long, from Mata Hospital to the airport. All that sewer goes into the Athi River. All of it.
Good Lord. Okay.
So if we don't find a sustainable way to canalize the river, because there are no simple solutions. You're not going to displace people in Kibera. You're not going to move people out of Nakuru. So you have to find a way to put this water into a canal. And that is not a county project. That is a national government project that underlies the existential nature of this problem. Because if the Athi River dies, a huge portion of Kenya dies. Because the Athi River feeds all the way into our Machakos County, parts of Thika County, into Tana River. The whole of the Savo ecosystem relies largely on the Athi River, partly the Savo East. So what happens if we don't clean this? We're going to kill our country. So for me, I don't see it as something negotiable. I will make it agenda number 1 for the Council of Governors. I will make it agenda number 1 for the discussions we have at IBEC. And I'll make it agenda number 1 with the 5th President of Kenya, Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga.
Talk to the people of Machakos, the eastern part of Machakos, because there has been that conversation that you and your running mate come from the west of Machakos. And even the conversation that we've been having this morning, we've been talking a lot about the Athi River, Okoh, on this side of Machakos. Whereas the people of Matu and Tala don't feel like they're mentioned at all.
So the story is as follows. Number 1 is actually our entire development blueprint starts in Masinga, because the people of Masinga drink water sold to them by Kitui County, believe it or not. Water comes out of Masinga Dam through Kitwasko, goes to Kitui, and is then conveyed back and sold to the people of Machakos by a county from another county. It's a shame. I must remove this shame from the people of Masinga and Yatta and Mwala. And that is why my plans. I have plans, and I have talked to them about building of their roads. I want them to be able to wake up in Ekalakala, go until Masinga, Kiva, Kaiwa, all the way to Kwachumbo, which are roads that need to be done. I want them to be able to wake up and come from Ekalakala to Sofia. Those are the big roads that are needed. The people in Matu, from Matu to Kidimani, Kidimani to Ikombe, Ikombe to Katangi, and then Ikombe to Matu. These are all the big roads that need to be done to bring some form of equality back. The people of Mwala have told me they want a road from Kangundo, from a place called Chevalukith, coming through Tumbiuni, coming to a place called Vulia, all the way to Kidhangadhini, and then crossing, going all the way to a place called Kivaoni, bordering with Makueni. I understand the needs of those 3 counties. We call them Weuni. They are the counties that have been most forgotten by development. As you know, we have undertaken to nominate a speaker from Masinga, the Honorable Alexander Nzambu Kathinzi, and he's leading our campaigns in Masinga and Yatta. And primarily, our intention is to show them that even though the government has been in the lowlands for 10 years, because our current governor, Dr. Alfred Mutua, comes from Mwala. His deputy comes from Yatta. His previous deputy, Kiala, came from Masinga. So the government was exclusively on that side of the county, and they got no development. So our take is this. Florence and I didn't come together because of our geography. We came together because of our underlying values, and we got together because of our agenda for development and our need to see progress done. We ask the people of Machakos that, number 1, we will make sure that they get adequate representation from Masinga, Yatta, and Mwala in our administration. But the acid test will be for them to see real development coming. And I've told the people of Yatta that Matu level 4 will become a level 5 facility to serve them, because the people in Yatta go for treatment in Kiambu and Murang'a. Can you believe it? Masinga, the people in Modesia and Didini wake up in the morning to go to Murang'a for medical treatment. And when they go to Murang'a, they are asked questions about, where, Musyoka, what are you doing here? Why can't you go for treatment in your county? And if they are referred to Machakos level 5, the guy has to cross 3 counties. He crosses from Machakos into Murang'a into Kiambu, past Nairobi, coming to Machakos level 5. I must liberate people from this sort of punishment. This is torture for our people.
Asante sana for joining us. We need you back again so we can now go into these issues that you've highlighted one by one. Asante for joining us.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy, Siti, Ndu, and Eric for having us here. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to sell my agenda and to appeal to the people of Machakos that look beyond party. Look for an administrator, look for somebody who's serious about development, somebody with a track record, and somebody who doesn't really need to go to court to prove that they were educated.
It's 10 a.m. That's enough said. Have a lovely day. We'll be back tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Wajackoyah in an interview with SpiceFM where he says Kenya needs to have a constitution that speaks to them.
Kenyans should look in the constitution again, because if you look at our constitution, it was hurriedly made very fast, not translated in all tribes. Kenyans were not given ample time. A constitution is something that grows with the population, and it takes many years. Now, if you look at the framework of that constitution, you get these people who went out, they took tea, came back, and then they came and said that people were supposed to participate. For how long was that participation? That's where we are coming in. That's why I'm telling Kenyans, look, let's go back to the drawing table. Let's have enough time, because Kenya is not going anywhere. We shall go somewhere, but Kenya is going to remain. Look at the sustainable development of our futuristic